Alright guys, so this is a compilation or a re-editing of all my Five Nights at Freddy's 2 movie theories, predictions, discussions that I've done over the past few months and all that. I've also added things and made a couple changes compared to the original videos that I made. And this is also going to be one seamless video with no intros and outros. It's all going to blend together into one big movie compilation. Alright, so let's start with my predictions and theories on what animatronic cameos are going to be in the FNAF 2 movie. So I've got a list of animatronics here, and the first thing I want to go through with them is that apparently there was one kind of like animatronic cameo appearance that Piper Rubio, who plays Abby, apparently got really freaked out and went crazy over. She lost her mind. And if you don't know already, apparently Piper Rubio is actually a pretty big FNAF fan, and I think she knew of it before she even got the role in the first movie as well. So she's a pretty big fan, which is really cool. So her being a big FNAF fan probably plays into what character would make her freak out the most, probably. So I'm first going to go through the list of animatronic characters and see how likely I think if they are or are not the animatronic that freaked Piper Rubio out. And then I'm going to go over the list again based on how likely I think that animatronic will actually appear in the movie or not. Let's start off with the more obvious ones, with the Easter egg characters that appear in FNAF 2. So let's start with Endo 2. He's cool, but I don't think Endo 2 would make her freak out. I think he's, basically, I'm not going to even talk about him later on in the video because I think he's pretty much confirmed that he's going to be in it. There's literally, but why would he not be in it? It's literally just the standard endoskeleton. They put the standard endoskeleton in FNAF, the FNAF 1 movie, of course, the first movie, but why would they not put Endo 2 in the FNAF 2 movie? I think it's pretty obvious that Endo 2 will appear in the movie. I don't even need to go over him later on. Secondly, JJ. Or Balloon Girl if you're living in 2015. I don't think it would be JJ, maybe. But I feel like JJ just being a baby recolor, I don't think it's that too exciting. It'd be really cool, of course, but I don't think it would make her freak out. Now, let's go on to the more interesting ones. Shadow Freddy. I really don't know. It definitely could be Shadow Freddy, but, it really depends on what they do with Shadow Freddy in the movie, because are they going to stick with the FNAF 1 design that they used in the FNAF 1 movie? Is it going to be like an animatronic? Is it just going to be a suit? And I don't know if they will be using the Withered Golden Freddy model version, that version where he's just Withered Golden Freddy recolored, because I heard they're just going to be reusing the FNAF 1 movie Golden Freddy for the FNAF 2 movie. They're not going to be making the Withered version, apparently. Assuming they're going to be reusing the Golden Freddy animatronic from the first movie, I don't think they're going to be using Withered Shadow Freddy from FNAF 2, the games, that design, because why would they do that version of Shadow Freddy but not do Golden Freddy? It wouldn't make sense. So I think they would just use the FNAF 1 suit of Shadow Freddy, the classic design. I don't think they'd be using the Withered version. And if it's just the classic version again, I don't see how Piper Rubio would be so freaked out unless it's actually a full-on animatronic, like, not just the suit and parts. And then, of course, I can't go with mentioning Shadow Freddy without mentioning that Max got stuffed in the suit in the first movie. So maybe that contributed to Piper Rubio freaking out and losing her mind over Shadow Freddy appearing. But, again, we saw Shadow Freddy in the first movie, so why would she freak out? Unless it's changed up, like, with Max being very conscious in the suit or something, or maybe Shadow Freddy standing up fully completed and built and not just in parts. So I think it's possible it's Shadow Freddy, but there's just too many factors to say 100% yes or no. Now, could it be Shadow Bonnie? Is Shadow Bonnie even an animatronic? Would he count? Now, the statement says one kind of like animatronic, so maybe that means it's kind of not an animatronic at the same time. So it could definitely be Shadow Bonnie, and I think Shadow Bonnie might freak Piper Rubio out, but I feel like Shadow Bonnie just isn't special enough, honestly, but it could be him. I don't know. What do you think? Is it Shadow Bonnie? I don't know. Now, is it the Paper Pals? And, as a side note, I want to quickly point out the, Freddy Paper Pal. He kind of looks like the bear from the original, like like dog-shaped bears and all that from the original, but the Paper Pals aren't even an animatronic. It's obviously not the Paper Pals, and I don't even know if they're appearing in the movie. I think there might be some Paper Pals in the trailer, but I don't think it's the exact ones from FNAF 2. Who else could it be? That's all the FNAF 2 Easter egg, the main Easter egg characters in FNAF 2. So who else could it be? A lot of people were theorizing that it could be one of the hoax animatronics, maybe the purple guy animatronic, or maybe the grey puppet, or golden toy Freddy, or maybe it could be the sugar hoax. You know how in the prize corner there's that weird shadow, and then someone took Kenny the cat made by Emil Mako before Five Nights at Candy's was even a fan game. It was just the character, and they took that and they stole it for that one FNAF 3 fan game. It got rebranded as something else. I don't even remember the name of that. I think it's very controversial, so I don't think they would do him. So could Piper Rubio have freaked out from one of the hoax animatronics? I think it could be, but the main thing I want to point out is I'm not trying to sound like I'm gatekeeping here, but Piper Rubio is quite young, and I don't know how active she was back in like 2015, or if she would have been old enough to know these hoaxes, and of course she could have just seen these later on after these were confirmed as hoaxes. But my real question is, would she have as much as a connection to these hoax animatronics as compared to someone who like grew up and saw these hoax animatronics and believed they were real for a long time? I don't know. I feel like it could be, because she probably might know that it's a hoax animatronic that was very popular back in the day, and she might have freaked out like, oh my goodness, Blumhouse really is putting a lot of fan Easter eggs in this movie, and the fans are really going to freak out. I'm going to freak out too. Could be, but I don't know. What do you guys think? So I was thinking like, it might be, it might not be one of the hoax animatronics or the main FNAF 2 Easter egg characters, and then I was thinking, oh, it might be Springtrap. Easy. He's probably going to appear in the film. Maybe at the end is a little teaser for the FNAF 3 movie. But I started to think about it more. But Springtrap he's not an animatronic, is he? He's partially. But in terms of like the production, like of course in universe he's half animatronic, half human. But in real life, obviously in the making of this movie, he'd be just Matthew Lillard in a Springtrap suit probably. So yeah, after that I was thinking, maybe it isn't Springtrap because he's not really an animatronic. But then I read the statement again, like I mentioned before, when referring to Shadow Bonnie. The statement says one kind of like animatronic. And Springtrap, yes, he's one kind of like animatronic. And they could be talking about maybe the in-universe, because he's one kind of like animatronic. Like I said, he's a mix of animatronic and human. And maybe they also said that to not give away that it's Springtrap. So after rereading that statement, I think it's very likely that it's Springtrap. I think he's probably the highest. I'm pretty confident it's Springtrap. But there are some other candidates, but I really think it's Springtrap, honestly, because of that. The way the statement is worded, I think it is Springtrap. Now, we of course know they're doing flashbacks, of course, so it could be Spring Bonnie, but again, like what I was saying with how we already saw Shadow Freddy in the first movie, we already saw a version of Spring Bonnie in the first movie, and we already know Spring Bonnie's going to be in it because we saw him in the FNAF 2 trailer, so we know he's going to be in the movie, so it's not really much of a surprise. So I don't really think it's Spring Bonnie at all because of those reasons, and even if they did an animatronic and a costume version of Spring Bonnie, I don't think that warrants Piper Rubio to be that freaked out as it was described. I don't think she would freak out that much, so I don't think it's Spring Bonnie. Now, of course, you can't go with mentioning Spring Bonnie without mentioning Fredbear. Could it be Fredbear? Now, with the specific context of one kind of like animatronic in the statement, I think Fredbear kind of is as well, because he's a costume, but he's also an animatronic endoskeleton character with, if he goes into performing mode, but he does fit into the criteria of one kind of like animatronic. The question is, would they make Fredbear a Springlock suit and someone be him, maybe Henry, or they do an animatronic and show the bite or something? I don't know, but I think it possibly could be Fredbear. I think he's a pretty high candidate, honestly. But would the animatronic that freaks Piper Rubio out into being really excited, would that animatronic have been in the same scene as her or not? Because I don't think Fredbear would be in the same scene as Abby, but of course she could have just been on set seeing it or something, or seen it at like one of the warehouses or the workshop or something. I don't know, but I don't think that's a factor. I think it could be Fredbear. I'd probably put him second most likely, right under Springtrap. Next up is Circus Baby. Now, I'm going to go into the can of worms, that is, will Circus Baby appear in the FNAF 2 movie or any FNAF movie? I'm going to go into that later on in the video. But would Circus Baby appearing in the FNAF 2 movie make Piper Rubio lose her mind? I think it definitely would. Now, the likelihood of Circus Baby appearing in the FNAF 2 movie does kind of play into my ranking of her. But I think she's more likely than Spring Bonnie, and then I think Fredbear's above that, and then at the top, Springtrap. Now, I've got one more I want to talk about, and this one is pretty exciting. Could it be the Mimic? Again, I'm going to talk about the likelihood of him actually appearing in the FNAF 2 movie later on alongside Circus Baby. But would the Mimic make Piper Rubio lose her mind? Could it be the Mimic? I think there's a chance, honestly. I think, if Piper Rubio is really, in touch with the newer games, obviously. She's into it, so she's definitely into the newer games. She's probably just seen Secret of the Mimic and all that, and Ruin, and with the Mimic being the main villain, I think it's definitely possible that a character as big as the Mimic would really freak her out and make her really excited. Now, likely going into the possibility of the Mimic appearing in the FNAF 2 movie, would they add such an important character from the main ongoing Steelwool era into the FNAF movie universe? At least with Circus Baby, her arc is kind of over, and it was in the classic Scott Games era of FNAF. But then it could sway either way, because then they're adding something that's modern as well, mixing it with the old. And of course, there's no timeline issues, unlike with the Glam Rocks. And also, it would definitely promote the newer games, ongoing Steelwool games. And it would also definitely make the fans and Piper Rubio lose their minds. And because of this, I think the Mimic is tied for 3rd place with Circus Baby. It could be higher or lower, depending on how you look at it. Now, who do I think was the animatronic that freaked Piper Rubio out? I think it was almost definitely Springtrap. I think because of the statement being worded, one kind of like animatronic, that is a very big clue. And also Springtrap, he would definitely freak Piper Rubio out with him being such an important character and such a crazy horror franchise icon. I think it is him, almost definitely. It could be Fredbear, and then after that, it could be Circus Baby or the Mimic. But I think it's almost definitely Springtrap. There's almost no doubt about it. Alright, so now I'm going to go over all those characters again, looking at the likelihood of them appearing in the FNAF 2 movie. Endo 2 is pretty much almost a guarantee, like I said before. Same thing with the Paper Pals. I'm not sure if they were in the trailer or not. I don't think they were. Maybe not. But I think the Paper Pals, at least in some form, maybe not the exact ones from FNAF 2, but some Paper Pals will appear in the FNAF 2. I think it's pretty likely. JJ, I do think JJ is going to appear in the movie. I think it's a pretty obvious Easter egg character choice. Whether that's animatronic or if they're just going to use the Balloon Boy one and just edit it in post-production, I don't know. Not sure if they're going to try and change her up, like make it less of a recolor or something compared to BB, but I think JJ will appear, yes. Shadow Freddy, I think he's also a pretty obvious choice. He's definitely going to appear. Whether that's the Withered version, I don't know if that's going to happen, or the classic version. I think at least the classic version will appear. I think Shadow Freddy will appear in some form. Whether that's an animatronic or just as a broken up suit as well, I don't know. But I think Shadow Freddy at least will appear in some form, definitely. RWQFSFASXC, aka RXQ, aka Recrucifix, or Shadow Bonnie. Yes, I think Shadow Bonnie as well, I think definitely will appear. There's so many characters, Easter egg characters in FNAF 2, I think all of them are going to appear. They're very obvious choices, because there was a statement about the animatronic cameos, and I think they said there were going to be some obvious ones and some less obvious ones. Well, I've gone over the obvious ones, but there's also one other obvious one I want to talk about quickly, which is Sparky, of course. I think Sparky will appear, maybe similar case to Shadow Freddy, where I'm not sure if it's going to be just the suit in pieces, or if it's going to be the fully assembled animatronic suit, or maybe like a Withered version, I don't know. Also, the endoskeleton Tina or Arnold might appear, I don't know, but it's kind of, since it's Endo 1 based, I don't know, and was stuck in the first pizzeria, I don't know. Maybe it'll appear just broken up in the background when they revisit the first location. Same case could be for Ella and the Freddy torture chair, and also the, technically still the Freddy torture chair, but the weird dismantled endoskeleton on the ground there with the weird animatronic parts on it, the costume parts, like it's half-finished Fredbear, which we'll go on to a bit later on again. But now let's talk about the hoax animatronics again. The purple guy animatronic, I think he's probably the most likely hoax animatronic to appear. I think a lot of people thought he was fake back in the day. I think a lot of people quickly caught on that it was clearly Withered Golden Freddy edited, and that he's not real. But still, he was pretty prominent, and I think he will probably get some sort of mention in the movie. I think his costume will be there. I'm not sure how they would integrate that with the lore and the story. Or maybe just say it's just an Easter egg, it's not anything serious. I don't know why there would be a purple guy animatronic suit or something. Maybe in a drawing, maybe, or something like that. Or some doll. Maybe not like a full-on animatronic, but I think the purple guy animatronic thing will appear. But I think that's the most likely candidate for a hoax animatronic cameo. Now, the grey puppet. I don't know how they would do this. Actually, I do kind of... I can come up with a couple ideas. Maybe they could do it like where it's like a flash on the screen in different colors or something, or on the TV screen, or in the drawings again or something. When you think of FNAF hoax animatronics, does this one come to mind? I think this would be one of the later ones that would come to mind, but I think it does come to mind when you think of FNAF hoax animatronics. I do kind of remember this one back in the day, but I think it was very brief. I don't remember it too much, but I do remember it. Now, up next, the Golden Toy Freddy animatronic. I don't know how they would do this again. I don't know how they would do this without messing with the lore, because it's Golden Freddy. Kind of. Golden Toy Freddy. Is it gonna be just a form that the spirit takes on in like a vision maybe? Like just taking after normal Freddy, like what people say Cassidy does in the main games, taking after the Freddy that's currently on stage with like classic Freddy. Something like that, or something maybe it's just gonna appear in a drawing, or it's like a doll or something, or maybe like a chase figure or something, and like a little cardboard cutout, like it's like a little McDonald's toy, like a little plastic toy, and it's like the chase figure or something. I don't know. Maybe something like that. Maybe they could do something like that. But I just don't know how they would do it without messing up with the lore. What do you guys think? I think there's a chance, but I don't know, really. Now, Shadow Balloon Boy. I think they could probably just do something like just have Balloon Boy in like the shadows or something, and then just give it the white glowing teeth and the white glowing eyes or something in the shadow, or just have Shadow Balloon Boy just appear next to Shadow Bonnie or something, or have Shadow Balloon Boy flash somewhere. I think they could have him pretty easily, insert him in pretty easily. But when you think FNAF 2 animatronic hoaxes, do you think him? Will they do him? I really don't know. He was also kind of tied strictly to the Android version, so how many people really know about him? Because I remember people were saying he was in the Android version only, but I don't know. I think there's a chance, but I don't know. I think he's more likely than Golden Toy Freddy, honestly, maybe around the same. A bit higher than him. I think Grey Puppet, though, compared to him, I think Grey Puppet has more of a chance. A lot of these I don't know, but this one I am pretty confident with my answer on. With Sugar, aka Candy, like I said before, he was stolen by this guy who made a FNAF 3 fan game, trying to make it like seem like it's the real FNAF 3, and then I think it was renamed to another fan game. It was the Return to Freddy's, I think. Yeah, the Return to Freddy's was rebranded as. And I think the guy, the creator who made that game, like, he ended up being not a very good guy. I don't want to say he was a very, very bad man. Just put it, say the least. I don't think this guy's gonna appear because of the history of this character. I don't think Sugar's gonna appear. Maybe Candy the Cat could. I don't know, but I feel like it would be acknowledging this part of the FNAF fan game history a bit too much. Maybe with this character being stolen, especially because I think you'd have to tie it with the weird shadow in the prize corner, Candy. I think you'd have to tie it to that. I don't know. They could just completely ignore that altogether and just have Candy in there. Yeah, since we're talking about Candy, I might as well talk about Popgoes as well. I think Popgoes as well could have a small chance, but I think it would be very small. I think Candy has a chance of actually being an animatronic, but it's very small. Popgoes, I think he would probably appear, like I said, with like Golden Toy Freddy and the purple guy animatronic. He might just appear on a drawing or like as a plush figure or something. I don't think he would get animatronic at all. Candy might get animatronic, but it's very unlikely, but he might. I think Candy as well, he might get some sort of plush or in the drawings or something, maybe at least, maybe, but even then I don't know if either of those two will show up. Now, what about the Withered toy animatronics? I really don't know. I don't think they would appear. Maybe some sort of hallucination or something, but it would if they appear physically, it'd have to be some sort of lore significance. Maybe they get broken down and then they get put in the FNAF 3 box or something. I don't know, but even then the damage, the FNAF 3 box, the toy animatronic heads weren't damaged at all, really. So unless there's some sort of lore significance where they get destroyed, I think they would only appear in like hallucination. Even then, it's a very slim chance, but I don't think they're going to appear, honestly. I don't think they will. Alright, so now I'm done with all the hoax animatronics. Now, what about Springtrap? Moving on to him. I don't think the question is if he will be in the movie. I think the question is how much of him will be in the movie, because I think we will almost definitely get some sort of teaser for the third movie with Springtrap to some degree, but I think they will most likely save him mostly for the third movie, so I don't think he would have a very large role. Maybe near the climax of the movie he'll appear and it's revealed that William Afton is still alive as Springtrap, and he comes back. You get the reveal, the introduction of Springtrap for the third movie, and he's like, oh, I'll get you guys next time. I'll always come back. I'll get you next time, Mike. And then they save that for the next movie. I think they will introduce him, but maybe they'll just do him a little tease at the end of the movie where he's just revealed in the safe room or something. He just breaks out or something. Or maybe they'll just do it in the post-credits. No, we've got the post-credits. It was already leaked, guys. If you guys want to check it out, it's a very, definitely 1000% real leak. I did not make that in Blender. It's not based off a very popular, but kind of forgotten / niche Five Nights at Freddy's SFM series. It's definitely a very real post-credit scene leak, so make sure you guys check that video out with the post-credit scene. So we know he won't appear in the post-credit scene, so I think most likely he will appear in the climax because they're going to want to use him in the marketing of the third movie. So I think Springtrap will pretty much definitely appear appear in the FNAF 2 movie at the end climax. I think he definitely will be. Not sure to what degree his importance will be to the plot and all that, but there's almost no doubt about if he's going to appear in the movie or not. I think the same thing with Spring Bonnie and Fredbear. Or Spring Bonnie's already been confirmed for the movie, technically in the trailer too. So Spring Bonnie will definitely appear, and I think you can't show Spring Bonnie without Fredbear. So I think we definitely will see Fredbear. Again, I'm not sure if he's going to be in performing mode or if he's going to be like Henry in the suit or something. I don't know. But I think Fredbear will definitely appear in the movie. And do I think he will appear in the form as the Fredbear torture chair? I think, will we get an explanation for what that costume is? If Golden Freddy is Fredbear or not? Is Golden Freddy a hallucination? I don't know. He affected the weight of the car, so I think he's got to physically manifest somewhat, but I'm not sure to what degree or not. Nightmare, but the normal suit version. So basically a Fredbear, but with the yellow accessories and the black fur. I don't know how they would do that, maybe, because I feel like, again, he should have some sort of lore significance, but I feel like Nightmare, since he's kind of supposed to be Shadow Freddy, I don't think they would do him, but it's possible maybe his parts appear in the back room, kind of like what they did with Shadow Freddy in the first movie and all that, and Sparky, but I don't think a Nightmare will appear. I don't think he will. Now, what about some of the FNAF 6 crew, like El Chip or the Mediocre Melodies? I feel like they would feel too out of place in this movie, but it's possible, but again, maybe they would just appear on some sort of poster or something, but I don't think they would appear physically as animatronics, because they just feel too out of place in this movie, I feel like, honestly. Could be, but then if you do the Mediocre Melodies, you'd have to do all of them. El Chip, you could definitely just do him, Funtime Chica, and then, like, Music Man. Music Man? Nah, I don't think he really fits, but he could appear, like, broken up or something in the parts and services or something, but... Now, on the topic of the Mediocre Melodies, in one of the quote-unquote leaked scripts, which is part of the teasers that was revealed for the FNAF 2 movie, it might have been for one of the charity events, but there were 4 pages of the script that was shown, and apparently one of them was real. And in one of them, it says the carousel characters include a gator, a wolf, and a hippo. So, maybe they could appear in the FNAF 2 movie, but obviously we've seen the carousel, and no, there's no gator, there's no wolf, there's no hippo. Unless it's talking about another abandoned Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria restaurant, which I doubt is true. I mean, it says abandoned Freddy's Pizzeria and Theater, so maybe there's going to be another Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria restaurant, but I doubt this is the case, because we probably would have seen the exterior been built. We probably would have seen it if that was the case. I don't think any of these guys will appear. Maybe El Chip, but I don't think so. Speaking of El Chip, going into Scott's old games, will Chipper or Coffee or something appear in the movie? I think, again, maybe it's an Easter egg, but I don't think even Chipper had a cameo in the first movie. I think Coffee might have. I think he did, maybe. I know the Chica's Magic Rainbow did, but I'm not sure about Coffee. Maybe he did already, but will they have a Chipper animatronic? I don't think Scott would do that, but it's possible. I think, again, they just keep it to some sort of poster or some sort of drawing or something, or some sort of toy. I don't think they would do them. The Twisted Ones, or the Twisted Wolf, I should say, will he have some sort of cameo, some sort of animatronic normal version? Possibly, but again, unlikely, but he would definitely be a quote-unquote less obvious cameo. I don't think the wolf animatronic will appear. Even less likely is Fourth Closet Funtime Freddy, because again, you can't have Funtime Freddy not have Circus Baby and all that. I don't think they would do that. So I think he's even less likely than a normal version of the wolf animatronic. Speaking of wolves, will they do like some version of like Roxy or something, or maybe Monty or something? Will they appear? I think they could. Was there some sort of Easter egg of them in the main movie? On like the glass panel? No, I don't think there was. Maybe I'm just thinking of Secret of the Mimic, but I don't think they would do them, but I think it's possible. But again, they're kind of touching the Steel Wool era. I'm not sure if they're going to touch into that. And these two, along with the hippo that also appeared in Secret of the Mimic, they also relate back to what I was talking about with the Mediocre Melodies and the leaked script page. Yeah, I think they could possibly appear, but nah. But even though it's highly likely that this is not the real script page, maybe they'll appear. They were still mentioned in conjunction with the FNAF 2 movie, so maybe they'll have some sort of cameo. It's possible, but I see it as being unlikely. Maybe a little bit more likely than some of the other entries. Now, Circus Baby, again, kind of continuing on with what I said before about Circus Baby and, by extension, all the Funtime animatronics. Will they introduce them in the second movie? Will they make more than 3 movies and do a sister location movie? I don't know, but because I don't know if they're going to be going more than 3 movies, because I know they've just had a 3-movie plan so far. I'm not sure if they're going to be doing more after this in the main line. I think they probably will, or maybe they do it in a spin-off or something. But I don't know if they would introduce Circus Baby in the second movie. But then again, they did Ella from the books, from the novel trilogy, so maybe they could do Circus Baby, but it's got, I guess, I know that all the movies are trying to be a mismatch of all the games, but they're trying to solely focus on one of them, FNAF 1 being the FNAF 1 movie, and then the FNAF 2 movie being the FNAF 2 movie, of course. I don't see how they could just sideline such an important character in the games and just not have it be a major plot point in the movie. I don't know. They definitely could, but I just see it as very unlikely, but it's possible. Now, the last animatronic I want to talk about is, of course, the Mimic. I covered most of what I wanted to say about him before, but I want to again reiterate, will they touch the Steel era? And since the Mimic's arc is still currently ongoing in the games, I don't know if they're going to do that or not. Maybe they might want to do it to try and promote the games or something, but will they want to touch the Steel era fully? I don't know, because if they introduce the Mimic, then he's like the main villain. Like, again, like what I was talking about with Circus Baby, how are they going to sideline such an important character in the FNAF 2 movie? I don't know how they would do that. Now, we know they're going to be doing spin-off movies, so maybe we could get a spin-off one of the Mimic or something. Maybe, that's definitely possible. Same thing with Circus Baby, or maybe like the Nightmare Animatronic or something. All these characters, like I said, with all these characters, even though I said they're unlikely to appear, they still might appear. That's why I'm talking about them. Like, even though every FNAF character could appear in the FNAF 2 movie, there's a very unlikely chance that they will appear. I mean, very, very unlikely chance they will. The main ones that I've been talking about in this video have more of a chance of appearing than in Adventure Endo 1 or Scrap Baby or like Big Top or Jackie or something. Like those other characters that I just mentioned, they have a chance, but it's very, very unlikely, but they might. But the characters that I've been talking about for the rest of the video, they have a higher chance than the rest of these guys, honestly. That's what I'm trying to say, yeah. Are they trying to stick to just the Scott era of FNAF and not the newest Steel era? I don't know, is the thing. I mean, there might have been a couple Easter eggs I missed that were a reference to the newer games in the first movie. There probably is, but I can't just remember off the top of my head. But would they go as something as big as the Mimic? I don't know, but I think he'd probably just appear in the closet or something. Maybe. I don't think he'd play a major part. If he does, then he's probably going to be very brief. I don't know. Now, there is actually one more animatronic which might have a cameo in the FNAF 2 movie, which is Lolbit. But I'm going to be talking about her way later on in this compilation, because the whole story with Lolbit, man, there's a whole debate going on if he's going to be in the movie or not. So he deserved his own video, so I'll be talking about him later. So here's my final prediction list. I think the ones that are going to appear at the very top is Springtrap. He almost definitely will appear in the movie. Spring Bonnie, we already know he's appearing, so he doesn't really count. Fredbear, I think he's very, very likely going to appear. The Mimic, I think, is up there, but again, like I said, I'm not sure if they're going to dabble in the Steel, like an ongoing game arc or something. It's still ongoing right now, so I don't know about him, but I think he's up there as well. But I think those are the main ones, and the purple guy animatronic, and maybe the grey puppet, some of those hoax ones, I think. Another two characters who I don't think will appear in the FNAF 2 movie, but I really hope they do. Fishton, yeah, and also the very cute, very adorable, and very funny looking 8-bit Golden Freddy, not the Into the Pit version, because he got very downgraded in that game. He's so unfortunate, man, what happened to him, man. But I think I really want those two guys to appear. The Mimic as well as a third choice, but again, I'm not going to count him. I'm just going to count those other two from my main wish list. But obviously those two aren't going to appear. Maybe 8-bit Golden Freddy has a chance, but I don't think he'll be that exact sprite. Speaking of Golden Freddy, let's talk about Withered Golden Freddy. Like I said earlier, we're not sure if Withered Golden Freddy is going to actually appear in the FNAF 2 movie. So let's stop and rewind for a moment. So in mid-2024, around June, all the way up until September around. So around the time the FNAF 2 movie was announced and said to be in production, you guys might remember this, but there was some leaks going around, and the main one was that the Withered animatronics weren't going to actually appear in the movie, and that Blumhouse was just going to reuse the FNAF 1 animatronics. So the classic FNAF 1 animatronic designs were going to be in the movie, but just broken up a bit to kind of resemble the Withered animatronics. And there was a lot of community backlash, a lot of people arguing, like, why would they do this? People were saying, oh, this is really cool. Other people were really disappointed at Blumhouse, with giving hate to Blumhouse and all that. Now, most of these happened on Twitter/X, and some of these accounts have been deleted, and a lot of the posts have been deleted, so it's very hard for me to find, but I found a couple screenshots from other Reddit posts, and a lot of comments from Reddit posts from around the time. But later on, this was said to be false from another account, which is now deleted. They also had contacts inside at Blumhouse who said that the Withered animatronics will be game accurate. And it was also fully confirmed to be a hoax when the prototypes and molds for the Withered animatronics showed up as little teasers for the FNAF 2 movie. So all of that happened in mid-2024, around July to August, September. So let's fast forward to late 2024, around December, when a bunch of other leaks started coming up for the FNAF 2 movie. So a lot of these were with behind-the-scenes photos, ones of the set, and also ones relating to the actors being cast. And there was also about a leak with a scene involving Vanessa hitting Mangle with a truck/van. And that one did turn out to be true, with the official teasers and trailers for the FNAF 2 movie showing that scene and also the actors. And alongside those leaks, there was one about Withered Golden Freddy not appearing in the FNAF 2 movie, with the classic version being used instead. Now, all these leaks that turned out to be true, along with that Withered Golden Freddy one, were all said by the same person who has sources at Blumhouse. This lot of leaks spanned from around maybe a month to 3 months at most, but that Withered Golden Freddy one was one of the first, and that was in December of 2024, and then that Mangle one was a month later in January of 2025. And all these leaks were said by the same person who said the classic animatronics were going to be reused instead of Blumhouse making the Withered animatronics all those months earlier. So this source may not seem reliable, but then again, this was separate from the other leaks. This classic animatronics are going to be reused was separate. This was months earlier, all the way back in July, maybe even earlier in late June. And the other leaks from months later, alongside that Withered Golden Freddy one, they did turn out to be true, with the Mangle car scene and some of the cast being revealed. And also going to the other source that I was talking about earlier that clarified that the Withered animatronics are going to be in the FNAF 2 movie. This source, from what I can tell, they also said that Withered Golden Freddy will not appear in the FNAF 2 movie. Now, I'm pretty sure this account is deleted. I can't find them. But I saw some other people saying it was this deleted account's sources saying that this was also true, that Withered Golden Freddy will not appear in the FNAF 2 movie. And from memory, I don't think they talked about the classic animatronics being reused instead of the Withereds. I don't think they said that too. I don't think they did. From memory, they just did not talk about the FNAF 2 movie and their sources and all that. They knew a lot of details, but they just did not want to give too much away. They're very secretive and private about their sources and all that. But eventually, after seeing all the hate being sent to Blumhouse and all the arguments, they apparently said, this is the only thing I'm going to clarify and talk about regarding the FNAF 2 movie, and it's that the Withered animatronics will appear in the movie. They are making new and accurate animatronics. Now, I'm trying to be vague on who these people are, because I just don't want to give away their details and have people go up to them and question them and just harass them. I don't want to do that. I'm not sure if they're still around, because I know both of them they're not on Twitter or X anymore. I'm not sure if they're around on other social medias. But this source, however, they were a part of a bigger controversy relating to another FNAF leak. I'm not going to get into that, but if you know, guys, you know. I'm not going to talk about it in this video, but it was a big mess. I don't know. So that's pretty much that situation. And do I think this leak is real or not? I'm kind of 50-50 on it. I don't know, because, again, the sources of both of these people, they're kind of unreliable, but at the same time, they kind of are, because they did say stuff that did turn out to be true, and that Withered Golden Freddy one was bundled with real leaks, so I'm not 100% sure. And I also want to beg the question if that leak about Withered Golden Freddy not appearing is related to the old leak about the Withered animatronics not appearing in the FNAF 2 movie. And if it is, I have two possible answers for this question. One is that somewhere along the line, most likely at the sources at Blumhouse, they misinterpreted the fact that Withered Golden Freddy is not appearing in the FNAF movie and they're just going to reuse the classic animatronic. They misinterpreted that and applied it to all the Withered animatronics when that was not the case and was actually just supposed to be Golden Freddy. The second interpretation is that it's a cover-up or some sort of excuse for the old rumor/leak. They were trying to cover up the old hoax with this one and trying to say that they just got it a little bit wrong, that it's still kind of true, but they were meant to say it was just Golden Freddy and not all the Withered animatronics. So they're trying to make us think that first interpretation, when in reality they created this lie about Withered Golden Freddy being the classic animatronics to try and bring back credibility of themselves and try and just say, I got that old leak about the classic animatronics being reused wrong. I meant to say just Golden Freddy, not the whole Withered animatronic cast. I just meant Golden Freddy, not the rest of them, I swear. So basically they try to make us think interpretation 1 to bring credibility back to themselves, when in reality, no, Withered Golden Freddy will appear in the movie and they just come up with this lie to save themselves. Now, to be clear, I don't think any of these accounts have ever said that that Withered Golden Freddy leak is connected to that old leak rumor, that hoax. I don't think any account has said that, but of course it might have been deleted, but I don't think it has been said. Now, there is actually one more possibility, which is an alternate take on the first one, where the sources saw that the first movie animatronics were going to appear damaged in the FNAF 2 movie, but what they didn't realize was those weren't the real withered animatronics, because in the plot, the classic animatronics are separate, or they get built into the Withereds. So when the insiders saw the 4 main cast, the classic animatronics, all damaged up and broken up, what they instantly assumed was that these were the withered animatronics. So then when they passed on the information, they just said that, oh, the withered animatronics are the original animatronics messed up. When in reality, that was not the case. What they saw was not the withered animatronics. The withered animatronics were planned from the start, but they just somehow missed the fact that the withered animatronics were going to be game accurate and were separate from these damaged versions of the classic animatronics. And I think this makes the most sense, since they've got to explain what happened to the classic animatronics in the first movie, so they've got to appear again, like with the spirits and all that, so I think this is possible. But then Blumhouse and the Jim Henson Creature Shop, they'd have to build another set of the main 4 animatronics, since they've already got the toys, they've already got the Withereds already. That's a lot to manage, a lot to work with. How big is the budget? Are they going to be able to do it? And don't even get me started on the Easter egg animatronics and the hoax animatronics. Oh my goodness, guys, they've got a lot to do, guys, if they do those other animatronics. Gee, what's their limit? How much do they do? Oh my goodness, I wonder how many of them are going to be in the movie. Oh my goodness. But with these guys on top of that, are they really going to do another set of the classic animatronics again? But part of me feels like they have to, because then how are they going to explain what happened to those animatronics? They've got to explain it. They've got to appear somehow. They've got to explain that. So I don't understand what they're going to do. So I think they will appear, but maybe the Jim Henson Creature Shop will have to cheap out on them or something. Maybe just make them costumes or something, or make them not full working animatronics or something. I don't know, but I think they will appear. I don't know. It's possible. I think it's likely. But if the Jim Henson company has to make sacrifices and all that, would they sacrifice Withered Golden Freddy and not make him and just reuse the first movie animatronic? Because if they're making the toy Withered classic versions of all the main 4 animatronics, plus the Easter egg animatronics and the hoaxes, that's going to be about like 15 animatronics in total. That's crazy. There's no way they're going to do that, right? Unless they only make the outer shells and costumes and slap them on the pre-existing animatronics that they already have. So instead of making a whole new damaged classic Chica, they'll just reuse the original Chica from the first movie and just slap on a new costume to resemble the damaged version. Even then, that'd still be a lot to work with, trying to like replace the casings on these animatronics and all that, and just having to make these new suits and costumes already. Now, depending on the way you interpret that statement about the classic animatronics being reused and made into the withered animatronics for that FNAF 2 movie, that false statement, it might not just be that the designs are being reused with the Jim Henson Creature Shop reusing the pre-production material, the molds, or the designs, the blueprints for the classic animatronics from the first movie and just modifying them to be more withered and all that. It might just be the Jim Henson Creature Shop actually taking the screen-used animatronics that were used in the first movie and modifying them and using those exact animatronics that were seen on screen and actually making them the withered versions, not reusing the molds and the blueprints, just taking those animatronics, those exact ones, and then making them all withered and all that. And since a lot of people interpreted it this way, this is probably one of the reasons why Blumhouse got a lot of hate when this statement came out, because basically movie history would be altered and almost destroyed, partially destroyed. And all of that was on top of the statement itself, just making it sound like that they were going to take an easy and very lazy route into bringing the quote-unquote withered animatronics to life, quote-unquote. Of course, we now know that statement was false, and a lot of effort was obviously put into bringing the withered animatronics from FNAF 2 to life. A lot of effort was put into them. Like, look at them, they look crazy, man. Now, I remember people being even confused at the fact that the Withereds were going to just be the same props from the first movie, just modified to be withered. Like, why would Blumhouse do that? Why would they destroy these animatronics? But the thing is, if that scenario is true, with the withered classic animatronics actually being in the movie, then would Blumhouse destroy the animatronics from the first movie just to make room for the budgets for the other hoax animatronics, the Easter egg animatronics, and Withered Golden Freddy? Would they do that? Now, off the top of my head, I don't think they did, because the animatronics would have been on display during the time they were making the withered animatronics. They might even be still on display. I don't think they are. I don't know. If you guys know what happened to them, please let me know. I think they might be in storage. They might have been used. They probably were used in the FNAF 2 movie in some flashback scenes, and they might even be used in the third movie, so I don't think they would have destroyed the animatronics from the first movie. I really don't think they would. But if you guys had the choice, if you had a certain budget, would you cut out the withered classic animatronics from the movie? Would you just reuse the first movie animatronics with no changes, or make new costumes for them, or would you repurpose those same animatronics from the first movie and make them the Withered classics? What would you do? So let me know what you do in the comments, and remember that you're doing this in order to get the hoax animatronics, the Easter egg animatronics, and Withered Golden Freddy into the movie. The more you cut the costs on the Withered classics would mean the more hoax animatronics and Easter egg animatronics you could create and put into the FNAF 2 movie. I don't know, maybe they could get away with just using the first movie animatronics with no damage at all, since we didn't really see them get damaged at all in the first movie, so maybe they could just say that their bodies were like paralyzed or something, I don't know, but the budgets and all that might make it so they just couldn't make Withered Golden Freddy. But Withered Golden Freddy is such an important character in FNAF 2. He's one of the main animatronics. He's not some side Easter egg character. He's one of the main characters. So I still think there is a chance that they did him because he's such an important character in FNAF 2. And compared to the other Easter egg characters who play very minor roles in the original FNAF 2, or like the hoax animatronics who weren't even real, I have a feeling that Withered Golden Freddy, they'd probably push for him more. So I really hope they didn't sacrifice Golden Freddy, and I don't think they would, unless it was really worth it for someone like Circus Baby or like the Mimic or something. Now, I want to have a quick discussion on the effect that Withered Golden Freddy appearing or not will have on the FNAF 2 movie. What effect would Withered Golden Freddy have on the FNAF 2 movie? And what effect would the first movie, Classic Golden Freddy, have on the FNAF 2 movie? The main thing is they'd have to explain why that design. So if it's Withered Golden Freddy, it's probably going to have to be the same reason as the Withereds. And the thing is, we don't know how the Withereds are going to be handled. Are they the same animatronics from the first movie or not? We don't know. In the second trailer, we see the blueprints for the classic designs, and they're labeled as version 3.0. Now, we don't know what version 1.0 and 2.0 is. Is 1.0 the Withered animatronics and then 2.0 the toy animatronics? Or is 2.0 the Withereds and then 1.0 is just an older version of the classic designs with the same costume or very similar costumes and just with different tech or something? Again, what I was saying before with the Withered classics and the budget stuff, if 1.0 really is an early version of the classics, then that's another set of animatronics they would have to make for the movie. Unless they just don't show them at all or just only show their parts. And I doubt they would use CGI like they did with Spring Bonnie in the first movie to alter the existing animatronics and make them the 1.0 classics design. If it's like Spring Bonnie and it's just a photograph, then maybe I could see them doing it. But even making the parts or just the suits to swap out, it's pretty much impossible. Again, it's really unlikely that the Withered classic animatronics are going to be made, so I don't think they would do them. I don't think this is the case. And just by the feel of these blueprints, it makes me feel like these are different animatronics entirely. I don't know if these blueprints are going to be used to upgrade or downgrade the animatronics at all. I really don't know, because it just feels like that these are for two separate different endoskeletons and all that. Like with Endo 1 and Endo 2 is completely separate. In this universe, the movie universe, they are completely separate designs with different functionalities. They are separate animatronics. This is just the gut feeling I have, but I don't know. I'll probably do another full video talking about these designs and maybe the newspapers and all that. But another good guess I have is that maybe Abby, since she misses her friends, the classic FNAF 1 animatronics, she goes back to that location, finds the animatronics in a really bad state, and then she takes them to the other FNAF 2 location, and then fixes them up using the parts in that location. What could be the 2.0 designs, the 2.0 blueprints. She could be using those parts to fix up those animatronics and changes them into the Withereds, and she just fails miserably. And because of the modifications, the animatronics go rogue and attack her again and Mike again and all that. So let's assume this is what happens. Now, applying this to Withered Golden Freddy, that would mean Abby would find Golden Freddy as a physical suit damaged, and then bring him over to the FNAF 2 location physically, and then repair him physically into Withered Golden Freddy. Do you think that would take away from the mystery that Golden Freddy had in the FNAF 1 movie? What I could see is Golden Freddy kind of tagging along, he's just there, broken up, and then he disappears, and then as Abby's taking them to the FNAF 2 location, I'm not sure how she would do that. Maybe she just puts them on a car or something, gets someone else to drive, or maybe uses a taxi again, or maybe they just walk there or something, I don't know. And then just Golden Freddy, they see Golden Freddy, like, at the bus stop, and then the bus passes, and then he disappears or something, he kind of tags along, and then he repairs himself, kind of like that. I think I could see that happening. Will they have Withered Golden Freddy just appear with the design change, no explanation at all, try and keep him more mysterious again? Will they just do that? But to have classic Golden Freddy transform into Withered Golden Freddy, it would be hard to just not remove the mystery that he had in the first movie. That's the main thing. It is possible, but it would be very hard, and I just don't know if Blumhouse will do it or not. But then again, they could also try and expand on Golden Freddy and try and keep a balance of giving us new information about Golden Freddy through him becoming Withered Golden Freddy. They could try and give us more lore clues as to who Golden Freddy is in the movie universe through that process. I don't know. Whereas if they just use Golden Freddy, it's going to be very easy to just do whatever they want with him. They just won't have to worry about trying to not give too much away about how Golden Freddy interacts with the world around him and all that. Another thing that I should point out is that Golden Freddy is already kind of withered in the first movie. The classic design is already kind of withered with the broken eye and the missing ear, just like Withered Golden Freddy in the games. I presume they changed him up from the first game's design and gave him the withering in the first movie, just to make it more clear that Golden Freddy is separate from regular Freddy. But that didn't really work out because there was a whole debate on if that was actually Freddy or Golden Freddy in the trailers. And still, even some people who watched the first movie, they didn't realize that that was Golden Freddy, which I find really surprising. I thought it was really obvious that it was him. And this is both from audiences that are fans and are not fans of Five Nights at Freddy's. So if we had both Withered Freddy and Withered Golden Freddy in the movie, again, we might have that same problem where people might confuse Golden Freddy for regular Freddy. Whereas if they had the classic Golden Freddy from the first movie alongside Withered Freddy, then it would be very obvious that it is a different character. So maybe they'll want to go in that direction and have them more obviously different. But again, they might want to make it more mysterious and also be more accurate to FNAF 2. Since apparently the FNAF 2 movie is apparently made for the fans, they're catering towards the fans as well, more than the casual audience, which is kind of a mixed bag. But maybe they want that confusion around Golden Freddy and have him be mysterious still, and also cater towards the fans, so maybe they'll have Withered Golden Freddy. I don't know, it could go either way. Now, let's go into the idea that the classic animatronics are separate from the Withereds. They're completely separate animatronics. The Withereds were abandoned in the FNAF 2 location, along with the toys, and that's kind of why you can see them just deactivated sitting down in the trailer. That would mean Withered Golden Freddy would be separate from classic Golden Freddy. Now, I don't know how they would do that. Would both versions appear separately in the movie as separate animatronics? Would Withered Golden Freddy be possessed by another kid like the Crying Child, aka William Afton's child in that universe? Or would they use these two versions of Golden Freddy being separate to their advantage and pull a twist where we think Withered Golden Freddy is the same animatronic from the first movie, but it turns out that it's actually just a regular costume with a prototype endoskeleton hidden deep inside with coil eyes? There's many different ways they could put Golden Freddy in this movie, Withered or classic. There's many different ways they could portray him. I think they definitely could write Withered Golden Freddy into the movie. They definitely could. Now, if you have FNAF 2 Withered Golden Freddy, it'd be very hard to not mention the giant head. How would they do the giant head? Will Withered Golden Freddy just appear as the giant head, and in the rest of the movie he'll appear in the classic form? Will they do the giant head but just use the classic design? And then on top of that, we gotta account Fredbear for all this. What does Fredbear look like? Is he the Freddy torture chair? Is he Withered Golden Freddy? Is he classic Golden Freddy? Does he look more in line with Spring Bonnie? It's like a Springlock suit? Is Golden Freddy a Springlock suit? Are they the same? And I mean, are they same in not only in the sense, are they the same character? Is Golden Freddy Fredbear? But are they the same suit? Are there multiple Golden Freddys? Is there multiple Fredbear suits? Oh my goodness, I'm going insane. It's so confusing. There's so many layers to Withered Golden Freddy, Fredbear, all this. Now I see why Matt Pat went crazy with Golden Freddy and all his thumbnails and Fredbear and all that. Gee, there's so many layers, guys. There's so many different things they could do. The thing is, I don't know if they're going to go with the complex route or they're just going to do the simple route and just make it very simple to understand. And there's more to this as well. You know who else we got to count for? A purple friend. The purple guy animatronic, of course. Now, assuming that the FNAF 2 movie is going to have the purple guy animatronic hoax, although he is based off Withered Golden Freddy, assuming Withered Golden Freddy is not in the movie, I think it's still likely that the purple guy animatronic will appear in the movie. Because he's just going to be reusing Withered Golden Freddy's body, which is the same pretty much as Withered Freddy, so his body is the only thing that connects him to Withered Golden Freddy, unlike Shadow Freddy, our other purple friend. I've already talked about Shadow Freddy being in the FNAF 2 movie in my FNAF 2 cameo prediction video, so I'll leave a link to that. But I'm going to quickly touch on him again, but I want to talk about, will they use two separate suits or not? Maxine being stuffed into Shadow Freddy in the first movie just complicates this thing so much more, because you can't have him be physically repaired into Shadow Freddy in the Withered version. You can't do that, really. He can't physically appear as a thing, really. So the only way I could see them really doing Withered Shadow Freddy is, one, Withered Golden Freddy has to appear in the movie, because it wouldn't make sense to do Withered Shadow Freddy but not Withered Golden Freddy. It just doesn't make sense, like I talked about in the other video. And Withered Golden Freddy appearing in the FNAF 2 movie is already up in the air. So that just adds another layer of complexity. But then after that, going back into what I was talking about with Withered Golden Freddy and regular classic Golden Freddy before, Withered Shadow Freddy would either have to be very mysterious and just a hallucination that just appears. Maybe Maxine just transforms from classic Shadow Freddy into the Withered version, I don't know. But he wouldn't be a physical suit, he would not be real. It's either that, or he's a separate suit as well, and then he'd be a separate character from Maxine, and then have someone like Henry Emily's son and brother of Charlie, Sammy Emily, from the novel trilogy, appear as Shadow Freddy and be stuffed in that suit. Or maybe have Withered Shadow Freddy just be a costume worn by that prototype endoskeleton. Or have him be a dead night guard fueled by agony with a powerful orb and be named Nightmare. Would they explain the design change as just being a form that the spirit takes on, like what people say Cassidy/Golden Freddy does in the games, like taking after the Freddy that's currently at the location with like classic Freddy, with Golden Freddy being fixed in the first game, just keep it mysterious, no explanation. Now the last thing I want to touch on is if Withered Golden Freddy does appear in the FNAF 2 movie, what eye/endoskeleton head will he have? Will he have the very visible damaged left eye and then the right eye be the black and blue design like the first FNAF movie? Or will they make it more accurate to the second game where he just has no eyes at all? Or will they give him the one glowing pupil like that one merch render? My best guess is that they would want to do what they did with the first movie and make Golden Freddy different from regular Freddy, so they would have Withered Golden Freddy with the first movie eyes. And if they do that, that would also mean that Withered Golden Freddy is the same Golden Freddy as the classic version that we saw in the first movie. It would confirm that they are the same, that's the thing. If they are different, then I think they would most likely make it accurate to FNAF 2 and just leave it blank, no head at all, really. So overall, do I think Withered Golden Freddy will appear in the FNAF 2 movie? I still don't know 100% sure, I'm kind of 50-50. I think it's possible, I really hope he does, but that leak, man, the leak tells me he might not, but again, I'm not sure if that's reliable, but then it was paired with leaks that turned out to be true, so I don't know. I really hope he does, but I have a feeling he won't, unfortunately. Now let's expand from Withered Golden Freddy into the rest of the Withereds. Now I have a lot to say about the Withereds. There's so many different possibilities and ways they could handle them in the FNAF 2 movie, but I want to start with the blueprints, the schematics that we saw in the second trailer, with the most notable detail, of course, being that it says version 3.0. So the question we're going to be answering and looking into is, what are the other versions? What's 1.0? What's 2.0? Now I think the most obvious interpretation that almost everyone has is that version 1.0 is Withered Freddy, aka Unwithered Freddy, and then version 2.0 is Toy Freddy. And yeah, this interpretation is pretty simple and makes a lot of sense, of course, since the Unwithered animatronics would have been 1.0, and then they would have been broken down and become the Withered animatronics, and the toy animatronics would have been designed as version 2.0, and then the toy animatronics would have eventually been retired, and then the classic animatronics would have been made as version 3.0. And there was also a behind-the-scenes screenshot that came out where you can see a computer screen with Balloon Boy and Mike, and it looks like it says Freddy Fazbear 2.0, so maybe that's talking about the toy animatronics since BB's there, but it says Freddy Fazbear, I don't know, it's really hard to tell. Maybe it's something to do with the software, maybe it's Windows 2.0, it looks very similar to the UI, but Windows 2.0 came out at the end of 1987, so maybe it's Windows 1.0, but I don't know, it's kind of got the bluish theme like Windows 2.0, but that's besides the point. I feel like this photo is semi-confirming that the toys are 2.0, and the Withereds are 1.0, and then the classics are 3.0, but of course it's not very clear, so for the sakes of this video, I'm going to say that no, this doesn't confirm it, just so I can have a look at many other possibilities, but I really think that it is very likely that the Withereds are 1.0, the toys are 2.0, and the classics are 3.0. And yeah, I think this makes a lot of sense, and it's very simple, and it's very likely that this is the direction the movie is going to go into. Or is it? If this is the direction they would go, that means that the very popular, or kind of controversial at the same time, retrofit theory from the games is not possible. It's not canon to the movie universe. If you don't know, the retrofit theory is basically the idea that since Phone Guy/Ralph says that Fazbear Entertainment started retrofitting the older animatronics with the newer technology, the classic animatronics were retrofitted into the Withered animatronics with new suits, but then the retrofitting was cut short, so the Unwithereds were never finished, they were never completed, and they were never on stage. They were just a new design to replace the classic animatronics, which was scrapped in favor of the toy animatronics. The Withereds were never on stage. Now, I don't really want to fully get into this because it's a very controversial and just very deep topic, but I personally never believe this. Maybe the classic animatronics did exist before the Withereds and were first, but I think the Withered animatronics were definitely used and were on stage because the way Phone Guy / Ralph describes the way that the retrofit was done, it really just seems like they only started adding the technology from the toy animatronics into the Withereds. And Scott came up with this to basically show the reason why the Withered animatronics attack the player with the whole facial recognition thing. That newer technology from the toy animatronics was carried over to the Withereds, and that's why they attack too. And it also explains why the Freddy head trick works on them too. But then with Foxy, you could also chalk it up to that part of the programming not being added to him because the retrofitting was cut short. Also, according to the retrofit theory in the FNAF 2 Night 2 phone call, apparently Ralph / Phone Guy was referring to the new unwithered designs being so ugly, which is the reason why they went in a whole new direction, because those new designs that replaced the classics were just so ugly. But I feel like that's adding random information out of nowhere, and that he was just talking about the old original unwithered designs being ugly. Because he never mentions anything about new suits being given to the Withered animatronics in the retrofitting, and he never directly calls the retrofitting as the reason the characters look ugly. He also says that these older models that were from the previous location that are now being used for parts, they were originally going to be repaired, so I feel like that assumes that these animatronics were withered in the old location, although I highly doubt it was to the extent they are in FNAF 2, but they were originally damaged and then they were going to repair them, but they just didn't really do it. And yeah, in the games there's evidence of the classic designs being used before the Withereds and all that, like with the FNAF 1 pizzeria layout and the prototypes of the classics in Secret of the Mirk and all that. So I do think it's likely that the classic designs, or maybe an early version or two of them, were used in the early days right after Fredbear's closed. But I still think the unwithered animatronics definitely existed and they were on stage at some point. So how does this all connect to the movie timeline? Since version 3.0 is the classic designs in the movie blueprints, that means the withered animatronics came first and the classic animatronics did not exist before them. However, I still think it's definitely possible that a slightly altered version of the classics are actually 1.0 and then the withered animatronics are version 2.0 instead of the toys being 2.0 and the Withereds being 1.0. I think it's low, but it's possible, so let's look into that. The main piece of evidence is again looking into the games and the books with the backstage Freddy design. In FNAF 1, in the backstage camera, there's a weird looking Freddy Fazbear head on the shelf. These weird looking Freddy Fazbear heads. There's a couple of them actually. And in the Week Before book, it's eventually revealed that these are from the old location. These are old designs of Freddy Fazbear. So the idea is that 1.0 is actually an early version of the classic designs. Maybe something related to Backstage Freddy or something. No!
They were just so ugly,
And then the Withereds are version 2.0, and then for version 3.0, they basically took the designs and cues from version 1.0 and made the classic animatronics. Now you may be wondering, where does the toy animatronics fit into all this? Where are they? Wouldn't one of them be the toy animatronics? Now since the toy animatronics are very different and they're kind of separated from the original designs, with them being made of plastic and having rosy cheeks and all that, they're separate schematics. Basically, there's toy animatronic schematics, they're all separate, so there'd be a toy Freddy blueprint instead. So yeah, the retrofit theory could exist in the FNAF movie timeline. However, I do think it's very unlikely. Again, since this is the movie's timeline, it is very different from both the games and the book timelines. There isn't really much evidence for there being an early version of the classic designs being 1.0 instead of the Withereds being 1.0. We do have the Freddy torture chair, but he's more in line with the classic designs version 3.0, so I don't think he's version 1.0. He's pretty old, but I don't think he's 1.0 old. But something we do see in the FNAF 2 trailer is the Freddy Fazbear head. Well, it's the Freddy Fazbear mask. It's more in line with what we see in FNAF AR and Help Wanted, kind of, because those are more based off the classic designs instead of being the withered design and a whole head as it was in FNAF 2. And my question is, how would this have ended up in the FNAF 2 location? It wouldn't really make sense. One possibility is that it's actually the version 1.0 Freddy design, and that version 2.0 actually is Withered Freddy, and then version 3.0 is Classic Freddy. But the head doesn't really look that different from Classic Freddy version 3.0. It looks almost the exact same. There is no eyebrows, kind of like Backstage Freddy, so maybe it is Backstage Freddy, but the head shape still looks almost exactly like Classic 3.0 Freddy Fazbear. I don't think there's any other differences really. But since we don't have much to go off, there's a small possibility that it is version 1.0. However, another explanation where this is not version 1.0 is that this actually is the version 3.0 and it's either just some spare head, Or it could actually be Freddy's head from the first movie, that classic design, version 3.0 from the first movie, that animatronic. He was actually moved to the original location and then had his parts swapped out and then became the 2.0 design, Withered Freddy. And then his original head had its face ripped off when he was being repaired or when he was damaged. And yeah, I think either of these two 3.0 explanations could work, and I think it's more likely that this is version 3.0 and not version 1.0, an early version of the classic design. It just makes more sense. If it was an early 1.0 design, I think there'd be more differences than just the eyebrows being missing. So do I think version 1.0 could have been an early version of the classic animatronics? I do think it's possible, but from what we have right now with the evidence, there's not really any, so I think it's very unlikely that it is. It's definitely possible, but you've also got to think about how many sets of animatronics that Blumhouse and the Jim Henson Creature Shop are going to make. They've already got to build and manage the toy animatronics, the Withered animatronics, and whatever hoax and Easter egg animatronics they're going to add. That's nearing like 13 animatronics already, and you got to think about if the first movie animatronics are going to appear, or if the classics are going to be withered in this movie after the events of the first movie when we see them again. And then maybe the toy animatronics are going to be damaged by the end of the movie. And then there's also the unwithered animatronics on top of that as well. That's 5 sets of the main 4 animatronics. 20 animatronics in total. There's no way they're going to make that many, right? So then on top of that, are they really going to make 1.0 an early version of the classic animatronics? Are they going to make 24 animatronics? And don't even get me started on the withered versions of those 1.0 early animatronics. Are they going to do them? There's 28. There's no way. There's no way. I can see them getting away with not doing that one. But still, 24 versions of the main 4 animatronics? That doesn't include any of the extra animatronics like the Easter eggs or the Golden Freddys or the hoaxes. So unless they like cheap out or something and make them more CGI or just costumes or just parts that they can swap out for the existing endoskeleton chassis, even if they use those alternate methods, it's still going to be really expensive and a lot to make and manage. What you've got to think about is which one of those other animatronic sets are they going to make or not make. I honestly think a 1.0 early versions of the classics are just off the table if you consider all that. Just one extra set of the main 4 animatronics is already really pushing it. Whether that's the Withered classics, the Withered toy animatronics, or a version 1.0 early version of the classic animatronics. So I think that's the final nail in the coffin for the retrofit theory existing in the movie timeline, with the 1.0 animatronics being an early version of the classics. I don't think this is going to happen unless they just don't show the Withered classics at all and save it for the third movie, which is possible, but 1.0 being the Withereds and 2.0 being the toys just makes so much more sense. Although the toy animatronics are very different from the traditional animatronics like the classics and the unwithereds, using Toy Freddy as an example, Toy Freddy is still a version of Freddy Fazbear. He's still known as Freddy Fazbear, and the restaurant is not called Toy Freddy's Pizzeria. Although the toy prefix might have been added internally in the blueprints to further differentiate the version 1.0 animatronics from the version 2.0 toy animatronics, I think that's how it will be done, so the toy prefix can be introduced into the movie universe, and that's how the characters will distinguish the toy animatronics from the other animatronics, but I don't think it warrants the toy animatronics getting their own separate blueprints. And there's not really any evidence in the movies for there being an early version of the classics. That Freddy head, it really just looks like classic Freddy's head to me. It doesn't look like a prototype or an early version of the classic design. I think it's just a spare head, or more likely, it's the exact head from the exact same Freddy we saw in the first movie after he was changed and repaired into Withered Freddy. Going into that idea of the classic animatronics being rebuilt into the Withered animatronics, are the classic animatronics we see in the first movie going to be the same as the Withered animatronics we see in the second movie? Although to me, the blueprints, the schematics, they kind of give off the vibe that all the different versions are completely different endoskeleton designs and technology, especially if version 2.0 is Toy Freddy. It's not supposed to show version 1.0 being retrofitted into 3.0, I just don't get that vibe. But what I do think is that these blueprints could have been used to quote-unquote fix the classic animatronics into the Withered animatronics. What I do think is that there's a heavy emphasis in the trailers of the classic animatronics returning, with Abby really wanting to see her friends again. What I think is that Abby somehow took the classic animatronics to the original FNAF 2 location and then failed fixing them up using the 1.0 blueprints and parts and all that. And maybe even parts from version 2.0 the toy animatronics we use. Kind of like what I was saying before with the retrofitting in the games. When Abby or whoever adds parts from the version 2.0 animatronics into the classic animatronics to turn them into the Withereds and try and fix them up, that's the reason they attack and are fooled by the Freddy Fazbear mask. And again, Foxy, he isn't fooled by the mask because they did not add that part of the technology into him. Now, I'm not sure how involved Abby, Mike, Vanessa and all that are going to be involved in fixing up and bringing the classic animatronics to the original location and then fixing them up with the withered part. But maybe even the classic animatronics could repair themselves. But even if they do, I do think Abby will be involved to an extent, judging by what we saw in the trailer with Abby missing her friends and wanting to fix them up. The only flaw with this idea is the whole thing with the missing children and their bodies. The first movie directly called out that the missing children's bodies were definitely inside the classic animatronics at that time. At least that's my interpretation of what was said in the movie. So if the classics got repaired, what would happen with their bodies and all that? It's just kind of weird thinking about that. Now, this was also an issue in the games, and it wasn't really explained what happened in the bodies. So since the games didn't really go into it, maybe the movie won't go into it. But then again, the movie and the games, separate timelines, and the movie directly calls out that the bodies are inside the classic animatronics. And in the games as well, the original 4 animatronics were possessed when they were both withered and as the classic designs. While in the movie universe, the kids were killed in the first movie location, and they were always the classic designs. They were always in that version 3.0. They were never the withered animatronics. And the thing is, what were the withered animatronics before? What happened to the withered animatronics? Were they actually retrofitted into the animatronics we see into the first movie? Or is it like the retrofit theory where they just never existed and were never on stage? They were just spare parts that were just never used. And I'm not sure if their history is really the same as it was in the games. Like I said before, the withered animatronics in the games, my interpretation is that they were broken in the previous location before they were moved to the FNAF 2 location. However, in the FNAF 2 movie, we learned that the toy animatronic location is actually the original location. There was not one before. It was very clearly stated in the trailer.
This is the original.
So were the Withereds on stage at that location, but it was rebranded with the toy animatronics at some point? It would explain why the Withered animatronics, or at least their parts, are there in the FNAF 2 movie. It would definitely explain that. And we also know that the toy animatronics are not the original animatronics. They are not the original Freddy, Fazbear, and Toy Bonnie, at least as far as we know. Maybe they are, but I highly doubt it, because then why would the Withered animatronics exist? Maybe they came after the toy animatronics, and the toy animatronics are actually 1.0, and then the Withereds are 2.0, but they were just never used? It just doesn't make sense, though. If you go down that route, it just doesn't make sense. There is kind of a loophole to this, where the Withereds are 1.0, and the toys are 2.0, but then still, the toys were always the ones who performed at the original Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, the FNAF 2 location, where the Withereds, they were originally going to be the main mascots, they were going to perform there, but then they had some tests, and test audience did not like them. They found them way too scary, so they decided to go in a whole new direction and completely redesign the characters with version 2.0, the toy animatronics, and those were the ones that debuted with Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, while the Withered animatronics were retired to the parts and service room. This could very well be the case, but I feel like there's other options that make more sense, and I do think there's evidence that the Withered animatronics did perform at the original location. But I feel like they would do other tests before making the full animatronics. It would just be a waste to make the animatronics and just not use them. Like, wouldn't they test them with like schematics or drawings and show them to children or something? Do other tests before making 4 animatronics in their entirety? Yeah, I feel like this just isn't the case. Even if they were just suits and parts, they weren't ever fully finished and built, I still just don't see this happening. Another possibility which I've seen people throw out there is that Fredbear is 1.0, and Withered Freddy is 2.0, and then Classic Freddy, of course, is 3.0. But I feel like this just doesn't really make sense, because then what's Chica 1.0 if Withered Chica is 2.0? It just doesn't really make sense, and of course, Fredbear is not Freddy, at least to me. I don't think they're the same character, really. And it further complicates things with the Springlocks being the older models, and Golden Freddy, you have to throw him in there somehow. It just doesn't really make sense, it just gets too complex. I don't think this is the case at all. Another possibility is that the Withered animatronics performed at Fredbear's Family Diner before being moved into the parts and services room at the FNAF 2 movie location with the toy animatronics. Now, in the games, in FNAF 2, Phone Guy talks about trying to get in contact with the original restaurant owner, and then names Fredbear's Family Diner. So maybe that's also where the Withereds came from. That's the previous location he was talking about. But I see that as unlikely, since he says he loved the old characters in the phone calls, so he would probably know Fredbear's Family Diner 100%. He would probably know the past with the Withered animatronics if they performed at Fredbear's Family Diner in the game's timeline. And then on top of that, there's the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza grand opening newspaper, and you can't see the toy animatronics in the photo there, so I do think that this was where the unwithered animatronics did perform at. They definitely did. Maybe they did perform at Fredbear's before, but they definitely did perform at this restaurant. I'm pretty certain of that. Now we do have the carousel, and in FNAF 2 in the games, that has the dark blue Bonnie instead of the bright blue toy Bonnie, and it's clearly got the original red Foxy. And in the FNAF 2 movie, Bonnie looks more like toy Bonnie on here, but that's clearly the original Foxy, the red Foxy on there. That's clearly him, so that must mean the original animatronics did perform here at some point. Now this is making me question the Withered animatronic timeline in the games, because although Phone Guy says they are from the previous location, the carousel has old Foxy and old Bonnie on there. So maybe they did perform at that location, but then it closed down, and then they had the grand reopening then? And then they also did perform in the previous location, which is most likely the same pizzeria as the first FNAF game. But then the previous location line from Phone Guy doesn't really make sense unless they just brought in the old carousel from the old location, or the carousel was made during the retrofitting process when they were originally going to reuse the old Foxy, the old Bonnie, the old animatronics, but then they decided to go in a new direction and just not replace the carousel. I think either of those explanations work, so I do think that in the movie and possibly the games as well, the withered/unwithered animatronics did perform at the FNAF 2 location. Now, what I only have a partial answer to is why the withered animatronics were damaged and withered in the first place, and why they were taken off stage. Did Golden Freddy sabotage and damage them to try and get his place back on stage? Now, in the games, I don't really know why they were damaged and needed repairs in the first place, but we do know they were replaced because the company wanted to go in a different direction because they thought the withered animatronics were ugly and they didn't like the smell of them. As for the movies, I don't really have an explanation. Maybe the withered animatronics weren't damaged at all, but they were replaced because the company wanted to go in a different direction with a new design, and because of William and Henry's advances in technology. And since we don't know much about the withered animatronics, there's still the possibility that the withered animatronics just aren't the classic animatronics at all. The withered animatronics were just never upgraded into version 3.0, the classic designs. They were always just kept separate. And this would solve a lot of the problems we had before with the children's bodies inside the classic animatronics and the classic animatronics being rebuilt into the withered animatronics. That would solve a lot of problems. They just wouldn't exist. However, you'd have to answer the question on what happened to the classic animatronics, really. You want to know what happened with the kids' spirits since they're heavily important to the plot, so what happened to them? It's possible that their spirits, their souls, their consciousnesses were all transferred to another body from the classic animatronics to the withered animatronics somehow. Maybe like part of like the main circuitry in the head of the animatronics or something. I don't know, that's possible, and that would really solve a lot of the issues with them being the same as the classic animatronics, and would also still mean that they're still technically the same characters and all that. But would it be that easy to transfer the kids' spirits to another body? It's not as simple as Golden Freddy inventing some small box device that can save, copy, and store the consciousness of any animatronic or soul, and upload or transfer those consciousnesses into a new or different body. At least for the average animatronic or person like Abby or the classic animatronics. There is one character that can kind of transfer and put souls into a new body. The Mimic! The Mimic looks different in 1979 compared to 20... No. William Afton can completely change his suit and corpse from Springtrap to Scraptrap. No. Of course we're talking about the puppet here. The thing is, if the puppet did it, then how involved would Abby be in that plot? Maybe the puppet had already somehow done it and then Abby finds out and then she goes to the original location. But then unless Abby tries to fix them from there, my idea of the withered animatronics being retrofitted with the toy animatronic parts, which is the reason why they attack and are fooled by the mask, that might not be the case. Also, there was a leak going around. If you want to not hear about this, then go skip to the timestamp. But apparently, the puppet is causing the toy animatronics to attack and go crazy on all the people around the city. If this is the case and the puppet controls the withered animatronics too, then what's the point of putting the kids' spirits in the withered animatronics? There's just no point. Even if the withered animatronics need a soul or spirit to be able to be controlled by the puppet, that would mean the kids' spirits would most likely not play a major role in the movie unless the main characters need to help and save them. That was kind of the idea in the first movie with the animatronics being clearly the victims and not the villains. Maybe it's something similar to the first movie where Abby needed to free the animatronics from William's control. Maybe this time Abby needs to free them from the puppet's control. I could see that happening, but my question is, how would they do that? I don't know how. Now, there was no confirmation that the puppet was the one controlling the Withereds too, and I don't think we saw any footage of the Withereds outside the pizzeria in the trailers. So maybe the Withereds will be evil, quote unquote, in a different way compared to the toys. Now, if the puppet has nothing to do with transferring the kids' spirits from the classics to the Withereds, then is there any other way that it could be done? I do think it's possible, especially with like the newspaper talking about William's advances in technology, so maybe that could be talking about Remnant like in the games. And also connected to the games, the Molten MCI theory talking about the missing children's incident spirits being inside Molten Freddy, so maybe something like that happens in the movies, but then I'm not sure if the Remnant transfers the memories too. I don't think it did, especially with Molten Freddy. There's no indication that he has the memories of the missing children's incident, really. I don't think there is. Maybe it only works the first time because the animatronics in the games, they know who they are. They know they were killed by William Afton, so they have some form of memories, but then if the Remnant is taken out of that animatronic and used elsewhere, then the memories will disappear. I don't know. But Remnant, of course, could work differently in the movies, and this is definitely a possibility. Now, although it's unlikely, what if the kid spirits from the first movie just aren't put in the Withereds? They're completely separate. If that's the case, then are the Withered animatronics possessed by different children or something? Are the toy animatronics even possessed at all? Or is it all just the programming with the facial recognition or something? I really don't know, because it doesn't seem like there was some sort of dead children's incident like the games. The trailer only mentions some little girl dying here, which is Charlie Emily, of course. Unless it's Cassidy, or even less likely Elizabeth, but possibly other kids did die there, but we just don't know. The characters didn't know. Since in the trailers it does look like that William did try to lure some victims into the back room with the spring bodysuit, but then Charlie did save one of them and then most likely died after that. But Charlie's death as well, that was ruled as an accident according to Henry.
Everyone called it an accident, but it wasn't until years later when those 5 children went missing that I knew she was murdered by him.
And I don't think Henry told Liz and all the other characters about Charlie's murder at that point in the scene in the movie, because she just says some girl, not Charlie Emily.
Some little girl got murdered here.
Unless it's actually not Charlie that she was talking about, I have to assume that she inferred that William actually did kill Charlie and that it was not actually an accident. It was actually a murder. So that statement might not necessarily mean that Charlie was the only murderer at the location. Maybe Charlie was the only one that was known and found. So maybe there was some kids that did die at the FNAF 2 location, but they just weren't known. In the games, there was the dead children's incident in the Save Them minigame, so it's pretty likely that the toys were possessed in the games. But then again, the games universe is separate from the movie universe, so maybe that doesn't cross over. Assuming the Withereds are not connected to the classics from the first movie, I have 2 possibilities. One, the Withered animatronics and the toy animatronics are not possessed and they attack because of the facial recognition and the programming, or because of what I was talking about before with the puppet. Another possibility is that they are possessed, but then William Afton just took them from other sources like we saw with Garrett. He just snatched them from wherever he could. The thing is that no matter where the kids were sourced, if the Withereds are possessed by different kids, that's an additional 4 victims on top of the 5 that William Afton would have to do to possess the rest of the toy animatronic cast. So unless he set up an AFK farm with like Circus Baby or something, I don't see him getting that many kids. I don't see him doing that. 5 is already a lot. I don't know, he could, but an additional 4 victims on top of that, assuming that they were all killed around the same time, bringing the total up to 9, that's really pushing it. It could happen, especially if it's inside the pizzeria, but if they were kidnapped like Garrett, then I don't see that happening. But wrapping up this section, I do think the Withered animatronics will be connected to the first movie classic animatronics. Not sure if they're going to be the exact same animatronics themselves, but I think they definitely will be the same kid spirits because they played an important role in the first film and the trailers really emphasize Abby missing her friends and wanting to fix them up. So in the end, what do I think about the Withered animatronics in the FNAF 2 movie? How will they be handled? With the design blueprints, I do think 1.0 will be the Withered animatronics and 2.0 will be the toy animatronics. The Withereds most likely performed at that original location before it was rebranded with the toy animatronics. Maybe they also performed at Fredbear's alongside Fredbear and Spring Bonnie, but at this time I just don't think they did. After the original location with the toy animatronics closed, maybe the Withered animatronics were turned into the classic animatronics and their parts were left behind at that original location. Or maybe they were just left behind for all their torture to unwind at that location. Then, a year after the events of the first movie, Abby misses her friends, so she goes to fix them and turns the classic animatronics into the Withereds. Whether that's using the parts from the Withereds and transforming the classics into the Withereds, or transferring the spirits into the Withered animatronics, she will most likely fail to bring them back properly, which is what causes them to attack. This could also be a result of the toy animatronic parts being added into the Withereds. But the Withered animatronics will act differently from the toy animatronics, and they will have a separate villain role. And that's how I think the main 4 Withered animatronics will be handled in the FNAF 2 movie. And that wraps it up for the Withereds. Hopefully you guys didn't lose your mind over that, but this next one, oh my goodness, so many FNAF fans lost their minds over this. Going insane over the Lolbit debate. I don't know if people are colorblind, if they just pretend they are. It's orange, you It's twat. Pink. It looks orange because of the purple light. Son! It's Lolbit! Loud incorrect buzzer. Fake fan spotted. As a Lolbit fan, that isn't Lolbit. Could we wait just a week more instead of arguing about this? It's the dress debate all over again. Lolbit or Mangle?
Hey, I've seen this one. This is a classic.
Wait, do people seriously think this isn't Golden Freddy? Is it Golden Freddy or normal Freddy? This course is becoming the new what color is the dress?
Here we go again.
Is that Golden
Here we
Freddy
go
or is that
again.
regular Freddy?
Not again.
Oh, shit. Here we go again.
Golden Freddy. Yeah, it's crazy that this has happened twice with both Five Nights at Freddy's movies. Let's see if this happens with a third movie with a case of, is this character or is it this character? I'm basically making the same video that I did 2 years ago on if the Freddy in the Five Nights at Freddy's 1 movie trailer is Golden Freddy or regular Freddy. So if you guys want to have a trip down memory lane, quote unquote, then make sure you check out that video. But getting back onto topic about Lolbit, so in a couple of Five Nights at Freddy's 2 promotional releases with the teasers and the behind the scenes and all that, we got some photos and footage of the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 location, the original Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location, when it was opened during the 80s in its heyday. And in the background, on the wall next to Pirate Cove, you can see this head of what appears to be Lolbit. Or is it Lolbit? Because quite a few people actually have been saying, no, it's actually Mangle, it's just the lighting, it's clearly Mangle. Why would they put Lolbit in the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 movie? Lolbit is from Sister Location. That head there, that does not look like Lolbit from Sister Location with the faceplates. It's just Mangle recolored. It wouldn't make sense if it was Lolbit. So let's see if we can figure out if this head is most likely Lolbit, or is it Mangle? Or should I say Funtime Foxy, or Toy Foxy, or Funtime Toy Foxy, whichever one you want to say. Now I presume a lot of people who are going to be watching this video are already going to know what I'm going to be talking about, but I'll be very surprised to hear someone who doesn't. At least with the major points and facts. Now as like 90% of the people in the Five Nights at Freddy's community know, Lolbit did not first appear in Five Nights at Freddy's sister location. They debuted in FNAF World. They were an NPC who was selling the bites. And Lolbit's appearance in FNAF World was based off Funtime Foxy. Not sis location Funtime Foxy with the faceplates, but Toy Foxy, aka Fixed Mangle. So she was a straight up recolor like many of the other characters in the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise, like Golden Freddy, or characters in FNAF World, like White Rabbit, Red Bear, Tangle, not the Tangle, Tangle, the real Tangle. And then after her appearance in FNAF World, she appeared in Sister Location as an Easter egg in the primary control module where he might be in the same spot as Enid's mask. And then Lolbit was one of the characters in the Custom Night update for Five Nights at Freddy's Sister Location. And then again, she appeared in Five Nights at Freddy's Ultimate Custom Night. And then Lolbit after that appeared in Help Wanted in the Dark Room levels in Funtime Foxy's one, but the Blacklight version. And this is the first time we get to see Lolbit's full body. Although that's excluding the merchandise and FNAF World. And then after that, Lolbit just had minor roles in Security Breach. She was just on one of the arcade cabinets, and then for 5 laps at Freddy's. And then now it looks like Lolbit's gonna appear in the FNAF 2 movie, maybe? It just being the head would make a lot of sense referencing Sister Location with the Easter egg in the primary control module. And it also makes sense for it to be a recolor of Mangle / Toy Foxy / Funtime Foxy, whichever name you want to call her, because of FNAF World, of course. But people have been saying, no, it's just the lighting, it's just the quality of the image that proves that it's actually Mangle. That's why people think it's Lolbit, but in reality, it's actually Mangle. But to me, it really doesn't look like the lighting is affecting the head at all. It really just looks orange. The head, the main white of the head, still looks mostly like a pure white. Maybe it's got a slight orange hue, but I don't really see how it could be a pink color, especially since you can see the purple light affecting the mask, the head there. You can see it affecting the orange there. At least with the FNAF 1 movie case with Golden Freddy / regular Freddy, at least Golden Freddy's color was more dark and more brownish than any other Golden Freddy that we had seen, and it was not very clear because it was very dark lighting. Here, I don't see how a pink color could be turned into an orange clearly, even on the ears there. It still looks orange there in the ears. It would be uneven on the entire mask if it was affected by the lighting, wouldn't it? Now, people have said that the cheeks and the lipstick, it looks like a red color and not like the purple that it was in FNAF World and Sis Location. I can kind of see that. It looks more like a in-between, like a magenta color to me. But in this other one, it kind of looks more purple to me. I don't know, it's kind of in between. Like the cheek kind of looks like a red. I don't know if that's like a shadow or something. But it's just so small in such a low quality that I can't really tell. Now, the last thing I want to point out is the color of the light itself. It's a purple color, like Lolbit's lipstick and cheeks. So that color fits more with Lolbit rather than Mangle, but still, it could be Mangle, I don't really know. It's just the color of a light, so maybe this doesn't mean anything. Another thing is, why would it be Lolbit's head in the first place? Would that mean Lolbit is a character in the Five Nights at Freddy's restaurant? Maybe this was one of the new characters that was being talked about in the newspaper in the second trailer? And yeah, this is definitely possible. But then would Lolbit appear as a fully built animatronic in the movie? I don't know, maybe not. Funtime Foxy / Toy Foxy, maybe she will? So if there is that animatronic, which is pretty likely, then maybe they could swap out the parts on that one with a new shell to turn him into Lolbit, or just do it in post-FX. So there's a small possibility that Lolbit could appear, but there's also the possibility that they might not. So going down the route that Lolbit won't appear as a full animatronic, and that Lolbit is not one of the new characters mentioned in the newspaper, if that happens, then why would it be Lolbit's head in the FNAF 2 location? Why would it just be some random orange version of Funtime Foxy? It wouldn't really make sense. Now, of course, it could just simply be an Easter egg and just not be explained, kind of like what they did with Sparky and Shadow Freddy. They just weren't really explained, or at least yet. Maybe they will get a larger role and be expanded on in the second movie, or the third movie maybe, but I don't know. But if it was just Mangle's head, there wouldn't really be any other problems. Now, outside of all this, in one of the FNAF 2 promotional videos, there was one with MatPat hosting a quiz for the FNAF 2 movie cast about the FNAF franchise.
Next question, number 4. In what FNAF game did the character Lolbit make its first appearance?
And then of course the team carriers Piper Rubio and McKenna Grace got the answer correct, that it was FNAF World.
Sister location.
Sister location is correct. We don't even have to argue.
Sister location? What? Oh, I guess if we're talking mainline games, yeah, that's fair, that's fair. But the main point of this is that since they mentioned Lolbit, could that be a hint that Lolbit's gonna make a cameo in the FNAF 2 movie? And since Lolbit was in the FNAF 2 movie, it was on their mindset when making the quiz? It definitely could be, but I think it's a bit of a stretch. I still think it's a bit of a stretch. So now let's answer the question that we were talking about way earlier in this compilation about Lolbit being a possible cameo animatronic in the FNAF 2 movie. If you remember, I was also talking about how there was one kind of like animatronic that made Piper Rubio lose her mind. Could that have been Lolbit? With the way that statement is worded, with it saying one kind of like animatronic, with the Lolbit head, it's kind of like an animatronic, it could be. But with it just being Lolbit's head, unless it's actually the full animatronic that shows up later on in the movie, I don't really see it if it's just the head. If the full animatronic does appear, then I could see it being Lolbit, but I still feel like there might be other options which would make more sense, which I talked about way earlier and be more exciting than a Funtime Foxy / Mangle recolor. Now, just like what I did 2 years ago in that Golden Freddy vs regular Freddy debate, let's go see what the community thinks on what better place than Twitter / X. Of course it's gotta be there. Let's see what the community thinks. Going insane over the Lolbit debate. Color picks, by the way. Do people not notice it's a white light hitting the snout? I don't know if people are colorblind, if they just pretend they are. Looks at her even lipstick. It's purple. Does Mangle have a purple lipstick? And no, pink doesn't turn into orange. Shen, there is a purple light. Jesus. No, but it's a different head shape, so it can't possibly be a Lolbit reference. It's not white light, it's warm light. And the reason the accent's more purple in some spots is because there's literally a purple light inside and it's hitting them Lamau. You can even see the cheek is red where there's no light hitting it. It's pink, it looks orange because of the purple light. The shape of the head could just be a head for that. Like the Statue of almost said the Statue of Liberty, bro. Don't get me started on Liberty Chica. It's pink, it looks orange because of the purple light. The shape of the head could be just a head for that. Like the statue of Balloon Boy, there's the robot and then there's the statue that we saw in the trailer. It's orange, you twat, son! Could 100% be Mangle though. Lighting is important. I see where y'all are coming from, but I think it's just the lighting and quality of the photo. Everyone's debating about whether or not this is Lolbit, but I'm like 99% sure it is in fact Mangle, y'all. It's so clearly Mangle. I don't know how people see it's Lolbit, Lamau. This S is so annoying. It's literally Lolbit's head. Dorko and everyone said there's a bunch of secrets, so why wouldn't it be Lolbit? Every time I come across a Mangle vs Lolbit post, I go, oh, it looks kind of like Lolbit, but then I turn off my blue light reducer mode for my phone screen, and immediately it's, oh, that is not Lolbit, Lamau. It's Lolbit! Loud incorrect buzzer. This is Mangle, and my favorite is that she has 2 face spike thingies, and Lolbit has 1. Additionally, there are no faceplate lines. Why would it be a Funtime head? Mangle was just a recolor of Mangle in FNAF. Mangle was just a recolor of Mangle?
Really?
Lolbit was just a recolor of Mangle in FNAF World. So a Lolbit head at the FNAF 2 pizzeria would just be a recolor of Mangle's head, not a Funtime Foxy head from sister location. It could very well be lighting affecting the colors, but like... So are we ignoring FNAF World? What if it's a recolor like FNAF World? Fake fan spotted! Lolbit first appears in FNAF World as a recolor of Funtime Foxy, who became Mangle! I love how it's so obviously Lolbit, but MFs are so stubborn for no reason. Did we forget how the first movie portrayed Golden Freddy and Shadow Freddy? Originally, I thought it was a mangle head pointing to Pirate's Cove, but this screenshot shows Pirate Cove is actually next to it, and inside of that room with the head almost looks like an arcade. Very Lolbit coded. Why is Mario there? Wait, good question. 3 words. Movie Shadow Freddy. As a Lolbit fan, that isn't Lolbit. I love how people use Lolbit first appearing FNAF world as an excuse when Balloon Boy and Shadow Freddy both appeared in the first movie. I don't understand how you're using this as evidence it's not Lolbit when Shadow Freddy appeared as an Easter egg in the first movie with classic Freddy's silhouette instead of Withered Freddy. What kills me is that these people actually believe Lolbit is gonna be in a FNAF 2 film. Does look a little pink, yeah. Did trick me a few times, but I agree it's Mangle's head. Could we wait just a week more instead of argue about this? It's the dress debate all over again. So in conclusion, is it Mangle or is it Lolbit? It could obviously be either, but I think, in my opinion, it's more likely to be Lolbit. I'm probably going to get a lot of hate from people who think it's Mangle, but I think it's Lolbit because it would make more sense with it matching up with Lolbit from FNAF World, and it would also make sense with it just being the head on the wall, just like Sister Location, the Easter egg in the primary control module. Also, to me, it really doesn't look like the lighting is affecting this at all, unlike the first movie with Golden Freddy and regular Freddy. That is much more understandable, but this one, I think it's much more obvious that it's Lolbit compared to it being more obvious in the first movie that that was Golden Freddy. But despite that, last time I couldn't really find that many people who said that that was regular Freddy and not Golden Freddy in the trailer last time. It was mostly either people defending that it was Golden Freddy, or people complaining and talking about the design, with it being not golden enough. This time, even though I feel like it's more obviously Lolbit and not Mangle, I feel like there was a higher ratio of people saying that it was Mangle and not Lolbit, compared to the ratio of people who were saying that it was Freddy and not Golden Freddy last time. I think this situation also just shows how toxic the FNAF community has been, especially on Twitter/X. Oh, it's always been toxic to some extent everywhere, but especially on Twitter/X with this situation, I feel like it just shows how bad it's gone. People on both sides are just being really aggressive. Now, kind of not relating into the fans being aggressive, I feel like the fans haven't really been aggressively analysing the newspapers from this second trailer. So the first one is the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza grand opening newspaper. It reads, "This week, a new family entertainment venue has opened its doors in town, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. The establishment promises to offer an exciting and unique experience for children and families alike, with a combination of pizzas, arcade games, and live entertainment. Freddy Fazbear's aims to become a popular destination for local residents looking to enjoy an evening out. The restaurant is the brainchild of Fazbear Entertainment, a newly formed company dedicated to providing both food and fun for the whole family. The main attraction is the mascot Freddy Fazbear, a large animatronic bear who performs alongside his band of animatronic mascot characters. These include Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy, all of whom are said to be featured in a range of daily live shows." Now, the rest of the newspaper we can't really read. It says something about the interior of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, its design, something about arcade cabinets. So it's basically talking about the interior itself with the carousel, the water ride in there, and all that. The main thing I want to point out is that it mentions the main 4 animatronics only. So Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. I think this is most likely talking about the withered animatronics, or should I say the unwithered animatronics. Like I was talking about way earlier on if the withered animatronics performed at the original location, the FNAF 2 pizzeria, I think that, yes, they most likely did perform at this location in the FNAF 2 movie, the original location before the toy animatronics were on stage. And I think this newspaper is further confirmation that this is the case. Now you may be saying, but it could still be the toy animatronics, they just didn't use the toy animatronic prefix. The toys were most likely known as just Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. There's no reason to call them the toy animatronics. And yes, this is possible, but even if this newspaper was talking about the toy animatronics, surely both BB and the puppet would be mentioned. Like the rest of the characters, Balloon Boy is still an animatronic, and he would still be considered a technological masterpiece at the time. So surely Balloon Boy would be in the spotlight like the other animatronics, right? Or would he? If you were in the FNAF loop in 2014 and 2015, you might remember this little theory about Balloon Boy not existing. The main evidence is that he was never mentioned by Phone Guy/Ralph, his behaviour being very different from the other animatronics and being not explained both in the lore and mechanic wise. And also because he disappears on pretty much all the cameras except the game area of course, and the vent camera. The rest of the cameras, although he might be on a certain one, he's invisible, you can't see him there. But you can see him in the vent blind spot in the office, And there's also this weird thing in his mouth. What is that? It's there in FNAF 3. What is that? Why is there no endo in his head? Is that the kid's soul? What is that in his mouth? Oh, it's just the light shining through his eye sockets. Oh. And also there is a drawing of BB that does exist in FNAF 2, so it's pretty likely that Balloon Boy exists in the games. And if he exists in the games, I think it's likely that he'll exist in the movie. But of course the movie and the games, they're separate universes, so maybe Balloon Boy doesn't exist in the movie universe. He's just a hallucination, unlike the games where he does exist. But I highly doubt this is the direction the FNAF 2 movie is going to go, and I highly doubt this is the reason he's not mentioned in the newspaper. Now the puppet is a bit more of a tricky one to answer. The puppet is also technological masterpiece, so surely the puppet would be mentioned. And unlike Balloon Boy, everyone did believe the puppet did exist in the FNAF 2 early days. There was no theory that the puppet did not exist, at least I don't remember there being one. If there was, it was not very big. In the movie universe, it looks like they are going in the direction that the puppet is going to exist and be a main character and possibly a main villain in the FNAF 2 movie. So why isn't the puppet mentioned in the newspaper? I have two explanations for this. One is that in the movie universe, the puppet was added at a later date. And this could be later on at any time in the future. It could have been a couple weeks later when the Unwithereds were performing there, or it could have been later on when the toy animatronics replaced the Withereds. Or maybe even a few weeks after the Withereds were replaced by the toys. The same could be said for Balloon Boy even. Although for Balloon Boy, since he fits in with the toy animatronic aesthetic, I think he most likely came after the Withered animatronics were on stage. Either when the toys replaced the Withered animatronics, or some date after that. You could also apply this to the puppet. Like Balloon Boy and the rest of the toy animatronics, the puppet's mask is most likely made out of the same plastic material, although in the trailer it's kind of hard to tell, but it definitely has the same rosy cheeks as the toys. Another explanation is that since the puppet rises out of the ground onto the show stage, the puppet was most likely not known by the public, and that includes the journalist or writer that wrote this article. And judging by the wording, it doesn't seem like they have any sort of interview with William or Henry. I think this is most likely the case, since the puppet box with a whole platform that rises up, I do think that most likely did exist all the way from the start when this location was built. I think that always existed. I don't think it would have been something that was built into the infrastructure later. Also, the newspaper says grand opening. It doesn't say grand reopening like the original FNAF 2 game. I think at the grand opening of this location, the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza restaurant, it was originally branded with the Unwithered animatronics, and then later on they had the grand reopening in the movie universe with the toy animatronics, and that we might see a separate newspaper talking about that. Now in the games it's kind of messy since Ralph/Phone Guy says the Withered animatronics were from the previous location and that they were originally going to repair them and use them. But then at the same time, the restaurant has its grand reopening and it's talking about the new face of fun and all that, and the carousel for some reason has old Bonnie and old Foxy on it. So I don't know how to explain this. Maybe it's just some sort of continuity error, or maybe the Withereds did perform there very briefly, or maybe they were originally going to use the Withereds and all the decorations was based around those old designs, but when the company went in another direction with the toy animatronics and replaced all the branding and all that, they just forgot to change the carousel or something. I don't know, that's a whole mess in the game's timeline. In the movie timeline, I think I've got it down. Especially because of the wording with the statement talking about those animatronics, they say all of whom are said to be. If they had contact with William or Henry, or had the pizzeria been open for long enough, they would definitely know for sure and be confident in that statement. They wouldn't say all of whom are said to be. And judging by the trailers with the music box, the gift box, and the countdown and all that, I think the puppet was more of a secret special animatronic character. They weren't using the marketing or the branding of the FNAF 2 location, so the puppet wouldn't have been known by the general public. Alright, so that's mostly what I wanted to talk about in that newspaper. There's not a whole lot in that one, but this one there's a little bit more. William Afton's early ambitions. It reads, "The field of animatronics owes a great deal to the singular devotion and revolutionary work of William Afton. His pioneering vision for merging technology with entertainment using animatronic robots not only provides a fun experience for kids, but also serves as a form of companionship. In addition to his early success in the field of robotics, the opening of his Freddy Fazbear's Pizza restaurant, where his animatronic characters heavily feature, has made him a well-respected member of the local business community as well. Designed to be lifelike, Afton's animatronics are his crowning achievement and have become the stars of his pizzeria. Equipped with a range of movements and even voices, Freddy Fazbear, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy are brought to life in a way that has never been seen before. These robotics have all become beloved characters that entertain children and adults alike. From the outside, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is a place of wonder and excitement. Children gather for birthday parties, play games, and watch as the animatronic characters perform on stage, singing songs and engaging with the guests. In this context, William Afton is seen as a successful and innovative businessman. He appears to be the man who has it all: wealth, respect, and a thriving business. Afton's ambitions don't stop here though. He is excited about the potential for his future creations. He recently started to experiment with new ideas and technology, looking for new ways to improve and innovate. He always has new characters in development, as well as fun new surprises for his restaurant. He also has not rushed expanding out into new spaces. With vision and drive like Afton's, this can only be the beginning for Fazbear Entertainment. So that's what this newspaper says. The first thing I want to point out is, again, it mentions Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy like the other newspaper, but also it says they also serve as a form of companionship, and it also says they even have voices. The companionship, I wonder if that's a nod to the relationship between the animatronics and Abby in the first movie, or it could also be hinting towards the animatronics being the victims and not the villains. This also might hint towards the animatronics' roles in the second movie with maybe the toys, or probably not the toys, but the withered animatronics. In one of the quote-unquote leaked scripts, which was a part of the teasers, which one of them was apparently real amongst the fake scripts, one of them involved Toy Chica being an ally to Abby, so maybe that could be hinting to that, but I don't know. Probably just a stretch, I think. But more importantly, it's talking about the animatronics having voices. We haven't heard any of the animatronics' voices in any of the trailers or the teasers, or in the first movie. Now we know the FNAF 2 toys are going to have voices in this movie because the cast got revealed for them, but we're not sure about the Withereds or the classics. The classics in the first movie, they never spoke or anything, so I wonder if the Withereds are going to speak, because if this newspaper is talking about the Withereds, then are they going to have voices as well? Maybe the voices from the Withereds got repurposed into the toys or something, but we haven't heard anything about the Withereds speaking, no cast reveals or anything, so I wonder if they're going to speak, and if they don't, does that mean that this newspaper is actually referring to the toys? And this goes back into one of the scenarios that I was talking about way earlier with maybe the toys being 1.0 and then the Withereds are actually 2.0. But then it just didn't really make sense, because then why would the Withered animatronics exist? The place was abandoned with the toy animatronics on stage with their marketing, so the Withered animatronics, were they just not used at all? But then again, we got the carousel, that one stayed with the old red Foxy, so I presume they did perform here, so maybe this newspaper takes place years later after the Withered animatronics were retired, and then the grand reopening happened, maybe? But you see it paired with the other newspaper, and the writing in this makes it seem like Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is this brand new thing. It's not got a reopening or anything. The newspaper says the opening of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, but it doesn't say the reopening of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. It doesn't mention anything about it being previously closed down, so I really think this is supposed to take place after that first newspaper came out. So I think the Withered animatronics did have voice boxes. They had voices at some point, judging by this newspaper, assuming that the newspaper is talking about the Withered animatronics. And they either still have their voices, or it was placed into the toy animatronics. It could also be that the toy animatronics are 1.0, and the Withered animatronics were never used. They were just spare parts, unused animatronics, or just spare costume parts. But I feel like that just doesn't really make sense if you go down that route still. Also, once again, both the puppet and baby aren't mentioned in here. Although the grand opening newspaper looks like it was just published like on the same day or the day after Freddy Fazbear's open, this one I feel like it would have been published a week or like a month after Freddy Fazbear's Pizza opened. So I feel like the puppet should be mentioned in this, but I don't know why it isn't. And do you know what else isn't mentioned in the newspaper? A certain person. Edwin Murray! Where is he? Why isn't he mentioned in the newspaper? Nah, of course it's Henry. Why isn't Henry mentioned in the newspaper? He played as big of a role as Afton in the creation of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, presumably. So why isn't he mentioned? Why is this article only glazing William Afton? Maybe in the movie universe, it was all William Afton. He was the one who created Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. It was all him, and maybe Henry played either a minor role or only came into the picture later on. But that would bring into question how different the movie universe is from the games universe and the books universe, the novel trilogy universe. In the games, and definitely in the novel trilogy universe, William and Henry were pretty close, they knew each other pretty well. But if in the movie universe, if this is the case where Henry came into the picture of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza later on and he didn't play a major role in the development of it, then how close are William and Henry? Did they know each other well beforehand, but then after William succeeded with Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, only then did Henry join? I feel like any of these directions are possible. What do you guys think? I also like the foreshadowing in this newspaper talking about how William appears to be the man who has it all. wealth, respect, and a thriving business. Yeah. So this, and because of what we saw in the trailer with the flashbacks and all that, I think we are definitely going to see the motives of William Afton in the movie universe, whether that's something related to Remnant, trying to achieve immortality, trying to bring someone back to life, trying to give himself powers, or just trying to make machines sentient and just have reluctant followers like he did in the first movie. And all of this relates into that last paragraph here with Afton's ambitions, talking about how he's excited about his potential future creations, he's coming up with new ideas, and he's always got new characters in development and all that, and how he is taking his time, he's not rushed trying to expand out into new spaces. Regarding that statement, that last one, expanding out into new spaces, I think that says rushed. It says not rushed. It's kind of hard to tell just that one line there. I think it says not rushed, expanding out into new spaces, so he's trying to take his time maybe, I don't know. But could all of this be related to Five Nights at Freddy's sister location? In the movie universe, in the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 movie, are we going to see some sort of bunker with the Funtime animatronics and Circus Baby with Afton experimenting with Remnant? Now this goes back into what I was saying way earlier in this compilation at the start, talking about if Circus Baby could be a cameo animatronic in the FNAF 2 movie, if she could appear or not. So adding on to what I said before, will they introduce sister location elements in the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 movie, the second movie? Aren't they going to save that for a future film if they decide to do more than 3 films, or in one of the spin-off movies that is allegedly happening? Now in one of the behind the scenes photos, it looks like in the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 pizzeria, the original location, it looks like there's the head of like Lolbit or something in there, so maybe that's a sister location element in the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 movie, maybe? And even if that's not Lolbit, sister location is probably one of the most popular Five Nights at Freddy's games with the most iconic characters and setting and all that. It's also popular for being one of the most lore-heavy Five Nights at Freddy's games, and it also introduced elements from the novel trilogy into the games universe, so I do think it's possible, but I think it's unlikely. If it is, it definitely won't be as sophisticated as it is in the games universe. It's probably just going to be some very simple bunker. It's not going to be a whole underground sci-fi facility and all that. But maybe a secret workshop could be there with Circus Baby, or just some incomplete Circus Baby prototype, or some sort of reference to the Funtime animatronics with some kind of prototype animatronic parts, kind of like the module heads in the control module in sister location. Maybe something like that could appear. But I do think it's very possible that Remnant could be introduced into the movie universe in this movie. I think it's more likely that just Remnant will be introduced compared to the Funtime animatronics and Circus Baby. Now, that expanding out into new spaces line, what could that mean? Of course, it could be something about sister location with the Funtimes and Afton robotics and all that. But maybe it could be about using his animatronic expertise in other areas. It could be about other sectors in the industry, or it could just be about the facial recognition and adding those upgrades to the animatronics, adding new features to his existing animatronics. This entire paragraph could just be talking about what eventually became the toy animatronics. Maybe that expanding out into new spaces line could be referring to the toy animatronics walking around, roaming around the city and attacking outside of the pizzeria. It could also be foreshadowing the FazFest events that we saw in the trailers. But this article is a bit too vague to come to any true conclusions, of course also because it's set only like a week after Freddy Fazbear's Pizza opened, so obviously we can only speculate. Maybe the new characters in development and fun new surprises could be talking about BB and the puppet. I think that's definitely possible. It would also explain why they aren't mentioned in this newspaper, at least with the puppet, maybe not BB, but it would explain why the puppet isn't mentioned in the newspaper. But the only problem is that, didn't Henry design the puppet, at least in the games? I don't know how this would affect the movie timeline or the games timeline with this information if it's William who created the puppet. Maybe they both did it together? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Maybe it was mostly Henry's doing, and then Afton took all the credit, like he did in this newspaper? Maybe. So yeah, this newspaper doesn't mention a lot. But there's one other really big thing that really should be mentioned. Fredbear's Family Diner. It really should be mentioned in here, even just one short line just saying he had previously opened a couple locations he'd tried in the past but they failed, or something, just some short line. There's no mention of Fredbear's Family Diner at all. It's the framework of the entire franchise, the entire Freddy Fazbear's Pizza franchise. Why isn't it there? It's like in Security Breach where there was no mention of the Mimic at all in the base game, no mention of some advanced endoskeleton or some old contractor, nothing at all. At least in that instance, we know why that was the case because of the way the game was handled and developed. But for this, at least going by the games, the novels, the books lore, Fredbear's really should be mentioned in this article, or some sort of previous location, some sort of previous attempt at animatronics should be mentioned, but there just isn't. I'm really hoping the movie's gonna explain this as to the past with Fredbear's Family Diner and all that. Was it just not successful? I don't know. It must be very different from the game's lore. We know the game's lore is pretty different from the movie universe, so I can see it being different, but the question is, how different is it gonna be? We know in the first movie it's fairly different from the game's timeline and all that. So I really wonder how they're gonna be handling Fredbear's Family Diner in this movie. I wonder if they're even gonna show it, because in the flashbacks it looks like it's just in the Afton house, it's just in the original FNAF 2 location. I wonder if they're even gonna be showing Fredbear's Family Diner or Fredbear at all, really. I really wonder if they're gonna do that. Even if it's just some photo like Spring Bonnie in the first movie, I really wonder what they're gonna do. Although I'm starting to doubt that Fredbear's Family Diner will appear in the FNAF 2 movie, I still think it's definitely possible, and it's likely that we are going to see Fredbear's Family Diner to some extent, because the fans, we've really been wanting to see Fredbear's Family Diner, even in the games, get a Fredbear's Family Diner game. And I'm like 90% sure Scott knows about this, so I really think that they would put Fredbear's Family Diner in this movie because people have been dying to see it. And with the Yellow Rabbit Spring Bonnie appearing in the movie, the unwithered original costume of Spring Bonnie appearing in the trailers and the flashbacks, I really think we will see Fredbear and the Fredbear's Family Diner to some extent. I really hope we do. And that's going to wrap it up for all my Final Fantasy Freddy's 2 theories and predictions. And it's also the end of this compilation video. But that doesn't wrap up the FNAF 2 movie on this channel entirely, because I'm going to be talking about it once the movie comes out. And I'll see what I got right and I'll see what I got wrong. Bye.